All right. Good afternoon or good evening, my dear mortal friends. I am your Dark Lord, Sauron of Mordor. And today, on episode 6 of the BlackGate podcast, we're going to be talking about something near and dear to me, and I think a couple other of my guests here. Very nostalgia based. We're going to be talking about The Darkness and the Witchblade comics, and I guess you could say franchises as a whole. So today with me, I'll go down the list that we have on the screen, starting with Megatron.
Hello there, I am Lord Megatron, and I don't have enough Jack of Coke for this.
All right. I'm the Edgy Penguin. I just make YouTube videos and just shit post. I don't know. I probably should prepare for these more. I just kind of wing it.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Hey, I'm Jay Stepp, and I just love fan service in comics. And boy, howdy!
Oh yeah.
When it comes to the good version of the Darkness and Witchblade, you get it and then some. Seriously, there's more cake in here than a bakery.
Oh,
You're
my
not
God.
wrong.
As you'll notice, I have a little like slideshow-ish kind of thing going. This mostly main fan art. Or not, should be rephrased. It's official.
You might want to be careful with that because do you remember that one stream Slim did where he the thumbnail got Susan pissed and they just terminated the stream with no warning?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to go with it. We'll see, because I mean, like, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
True.
It is true.
After all, this is just a fun series to do.
It is. I'm just saying, just with the I don't know how bad, how
I try my best to keep it at least somewhat tamed. It's mostly official artwork of the comics and games and stuff. There may be one or two fan arts. I know I threw in a little nod to what they call the Rags team, just because I really like their stuff. So
They do some good work.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it already popped
Yes,
up,
they
but
do.
It'll be playing on loop in the background. But what the heck? Okay, there we go. So yeah, like, oh my God. So just a bit of context beforehand. So like, for anyone who doesn't know, the Witchblade. Well, yeah, it started with Witchblade. So back in like I want to say 90. I gotta double check and make sure.
Oh wait, Witchblade was the first one. I thought Witchblade was after.
See, that's okay. So that was something that I found very interesting when looking this up originally.
Because isn't the Witchblade like supposed to be a mix between the Darkness and the Angelus, kind of?
So yeah, back in like 95?
Because I think Darkness is 96. I think.
Yeah, 95. Yeah, Darkness is 96. Witchblade is 95. Top Cow released, Witchblade. Make sure I got names because I kind of get the names confused sometimes because I know like there's some people who created it and then there's a lot of different people who wrote it. You had David Wohl, Mark Silvestri. I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
Silvestri, maybe.
Silvestri. And then
if he's somehow watching, I apologize if I just fucked up your name.
Yeah, I apologize for any name. I'm horrible with names. I get my own name wrong sometimes.
Yeah, I'm horrible with that too.
But basically, they had this comic series come out where basically you had this excuse me.
It happens, man.
You had the oh, that's the reason why. Sorry, my computer's being kind of funky here. Okay, so you had a homicide detective named Sarah investigating, homicides in New York City. And during one of her investigations, she comes across this ancient little artifact known as the Witchblade. It bonds to her body, and adventure ensues. It's pretty much
standard.
That's pretty much the gist of the story.
Well, then again, it's a story in New York. Whenever you find weird shit, you always tend to go on wild adventures. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Something
that
like
tends to
that.
happen in New York.
I mean, most superhero comics take place in New York, at least either
Ex-
based in New York or starting in New York or something like that.
exactly.
And then about a year later, The Darkness came out, and which that was something that I kind of got perplexed by because when I was younger, The Darkness video game was my introduction
Same.
into
Same.
this, and I think
Hmm.
from what I was reading up on, that was a lot of people's first introduction into this was The Darkness game. Um, a lot of people didn't even know that Witchblade was technically the first of the series and essentially the kind of kickstart um, of the entire, I guess you could say, like Top Cow kind of Image Comics universe. Because I know at one point Image was publishing some of these books.
I remember the actually the strategy guide for the game actually brings up that the darkness was tied to other properties, and one of them they did mention was Witchblade, but it didn't tell you that Witchblade actually is first, which
Yeah,
was
there's like
interesting.
I was gonna stream the game, the original Darkness game, but apparently you can't because there's like a bunch of like different movies, and I think the full to kill a mockingbird is in the game along with a couple other stuff. So I'm pretty
You
sure
know,
that's why.
Good
I might
Lord.
explain why I've never seen it on PC.
That
Mm-hmm.
sucks.
Because I don't think that game ever got a PC port. Because matter of fact, I can look it up. Did it ever get a
No,
PC
I don't
port? I
think
don't
it ever
believe it
did.
did.
I doubt
No,
it.
I don't think it ever did.
It was a fun game, but like ultimately, like basically it
The
starts
second
off.
one is on PC, but the first one,
The second one is definitely I won't. I'm not, it's not a bad game, but it's less ambitious.
yeah,
It's
it
a bit
is.
more
Yeah, it's
straightforward.
only on Xbox. Damn, that's a shame because I don't have an Xbox anymore. I'm broke.
So yeah,
It happens.
basically, because how many of you guys actually read? Not even like for the stream, just in general, have read Witchblade, The Darkness, anything like that.
I have never read Witchblade, but I do have the Actually, no, because I have both now. I had the volume 2 of the omnibus that I think has like all the comics in it, and I was like up like issues 50 to I think 100, I think. And I've read that through at least once. First comic I actually got was volume 1 of the Accursed series, which is kind of like I don't know if it's a sub series, how you really want to classify it, but that was pretty interesting. I don't know if any of you guys have read that one.
No, I'll admit I have not read either the Darkness or the Witchblade. I'll admit that the two games, is the only thing I'm familiar with this particular franchise.
This was basically my teen years. This was like made me. It's stuff like this that got me into comics, and I'll tell you what. And
Yeah, I read the Starry in the Darkness comics as a teen after I got the game and played that, and I was like, oh, this was cool.
Yeah, I mean, especially like again, what I said for me, like the Darkness One game.
Mhm.
It was at Starbreeze Studios. That was the game I played, and it was done in a semi-open world first-person shooter kind of thing. It was more like a hub kind of
Yeah,
world,
kinda.
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was great. It was. I don't know if any of you ever played Escape from Butcher Bay, like the Chronicles of Riddick games.
Oh
No.
wait, those are the guys that made that, right?
Yeah, the same guys that made it, and it's in a very similar. It's pretty much the same style. There's obviously some variable differences, but for the most part, it's like the same game engine.
I remember really liking the being impressed with the lighting at the time for it.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I
The
mean,
lighting in that game is
yeah, I mean, like it's the darkness, so it's one of those. If there ever
it
was a game
needed
to
some
have
good lighting.
yeah. Um,
It needed
yeah,
that
that was
Doom 3 lighting.
say what you will about
Doom 3
Doom. Say
lighting.
what you will
I
about
like Doom 3. I will fight people on that one. I like Doom 3.
I like Doom 3 too, but like the lighting, it really helps sells the atmosphere. And I know a
I
lot
mean,
of
that's a
games.
game that kind of has like aged like fine wine, in my opinion, at times, like visually.
Oh,
Yeah,
great. Another stream discussion we're going to have to put off to the side at a different time.
Probably.
yeah, but in general, even going back to the darkness, like I noticed that with games where it's like if you do the lighting just right, it can make the game kind of last longer in terms of like
Yeah,
its
Mhm.
it
visual
really
appeal.
can.
And
Well,
I
that's pretty
feel like
cool.
The Darkness definitely does that. The sequel, it's kind of a mixed bag because, like, again, The Darkness was my first introduction. The game was my first introduction. Then I read the comics, and I don't know if any of you've played and read them. Like, there is a very big difference between the two.
Yeah, the comics. It kind of surprised me when I first saw the comic because Jackie has that armor that never shows up in the game.
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably we've seen it on the carousel. Yeah, that armor, you never see that in game. And he also didn't have the weird, even though I thought they were cool, the eel head looking things coming out of his back. Like, that shit was really cool, but that wasn't really mainly used in the comics. They added it later, I think, after the game. But there were versions that did have that.
So yeah, that was one thing I was gonna bring up is because so I'm kind of in a similar boat with Jay, in that these were my teen years. However, for a while, like I personally, I couldn't really afford comics. Like I didn't have a comic shop nearby my house, so I really didn't get to like purchase them. I didn't really get to go into the comic shop like I would want to, but I was always like into like comic properties and stuff like that. And so I played the games, and like for a long time, I didn't know what the hell Witchblade was. Like, I had no idea what it was, but I was always interested in the Darkness, and I got my hands on like the first Darkness comic I got was the video game tie-in, and it's like a prequel to the game. I'm not really going to spoil the game. I'll spoil it somewhat, but it's a long story to really spoil, so it's not going to go too far into it. But it predates. It's like there's like a reference to it in the game. Like if you play the game and read the comic, you'll understand what's going on better. So
Was
I
it
was reading
that part where the guy was trying to tell you there was like a light in the darkness thing, and the darkness shuts him up?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So oh, here we go. So yeah. So
they had a Spawn crossover with Witchblade.
Oh my god, we're about to go deep into this rabbit hole.
Because like I said, I'm blind on Witchblade stuff aside from a little bit. Oh, there was an anime too.
Oh yeah, there was. And also she teamed up with some other awesome women heroes like Vampirella and Red Sonja. That the second I actually read, because for some reason I can't find the Vampirella one on sale.
Also, well, that's a damn shame.
It really is.
There's a Tomb Raider tie-in for each one of them too.
The Tomb Raider tie-in.
Yep.
What? That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Because why not?
If you look at the slideshow playing, there's gonna be. I try to put as many of the crossover covers at least in here, and that's definitely one of them. I know for a fact I put that in there.
So Wait, you mean telling me Lara Croft was fighting the darkness or something?
Yes.
Why not?
That sounds awesome, man. It was classic lore, right?
Well, you got to remember they're both in the same comic universe. Top Cow.
So, and also,
I forgot about that.
What's his name? Fizz. In the comment, he also points out there was a Witchblade TV series. I didn't get to watch that one. I just didn't have the time, nor could I even find it.
That was a live action one, right?
Yep, there was a live action
I think so.
TV series.
I remember hearing about that one. Oh,
yep, that's the one right there.
Oh, when did that come out? Because I heard about it. I know it was old.
Probably somewhere in the 2000s.
Probably. It kind of has that look.
I wonder if that's when. I got to find out the date on that TV
2001.
show. 2001. Yeah. All right. I guess it's a little bit.
Yeah, that's like original X-Men movie era.
and then in 2017, NBC announced they were developing a Witchblade TV series.
Ooh, I wonder if it's based off the
what happened with that.
Guys, have you seen the new Witchblade?
Comic or comic or show?
Comic.
Comic.
Oh no, I haven't seen it.
If it's based on what?
You want to cringe? Because I could show you some pretty nasty cringe.
Did it go woke or something?
Woke? Just bring on the cringe. Bring on the cringe.
Okay. Can I commandeer the screen for a second?
Sure. How do I give you control?
Oh, I think I just hit the share over here. Put the share file, and let's see. Yeah, here we go. I couldn't buy this. I'm tempted to buy it just to show how cringe it is.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that, but because
I'm already kind of iffy on the art style already.
Yeah,
Like,
this is how it looks when it's actually being activated now.
That looks lame. Looks generic.
it's so hard to like. When I first came up with this idea for the stream, I thought we were just gonna chat about a couple of the comics, the games,
Sorry.
and kind of go from there. Little did I know how deep the well
The
of
rabbit hole
Witchblade,
goes.
of darkness, and all this just went, and it's insane.
Yes, if there's anything else, but yeah, I just figured you'd get a kick out of that. Sorry.
So yeah, like so, and that was another thing I know. Back to like the darkness though, is that like,
all right, stop streaming.
that's the thing I noticed with the darkness is that like the video game, you know, and
Oh yeah, that is Lara Croft.
Yeah, there it is
what's
right
up?
there. Basically, most people's introduction, at least kind of more mainstream side of things, was the darkness. Like that's where most people kind of came into this stuff. It wasn't until years later did I actually pick up the comic book and start reading it that I realized, like tonally, it's very different. Like the game, it's you know, it's dark, it's serious, it's very mature. The comic, however, it's mature, but it's more so on the edgy side of mature.
I mean, the game was pretty freaking edgy, to be fair.
Oh, but I'm saying like the game, like let me put it this way: the game, it's edgy, but it still takes itself somewhat seriously.
Yeah.
The comic is almost the exact opposite. There's like
So it's
very little moments that take it seriously, not really.
So it's kind of like with how Berserk originally started off with Guts being somewhat edgy, is what you're getting at.
Yeah, Guts is. I actually read. I have the deluxe edition of Berserk that has like the first 3 volumes in hardcover. Guts is edgy as fuck.
Oh yeah. Well, when you find out his history, can you blame him?
I mean, yeah, I already knew that going in. It's like I don't blame him for being this way.
Yeah, neither do I. But still, to the way that song made it sounded like edgy Guts.
No, but I'm okay. So, let me put it the best way I can. Is that like so in the game, Jackie Estacado, he's a bit of a jerk, but you get the sense he has a good heart at the very least. Like he's a jerk to the right people. In the comic, however, he's just an asshole.
I mean, I think in the first issue he's like taking advantage of a mentally handicapped girl.
No.
I think that's what happened.
He doesn't take advantage of a mentally handicapped girl. He basically he does like the smooth guy, like basically bullshitting pickup talk, and he calls her mentally challenged because of how easily she fell for it.
Oh shit! I thought it was actually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going off of memory. I just remember he got judged for that pretty harshly by the Angelus. They're like, oh yeah, he's definitely the next host of the darkness. Yeah, we gotta kill this guy.
Yeah, and like again, like in the game, he's much more sympathetic. There's a lot of other smaller details in it as well. Like for the most part, it's still the same thing. He's a mobster. He's basically a hitman for the was it Franchetti crime family?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and like that's pretty much like the main similarity between the two. And on his 21st birthday, he inherits this thing called the darkness, and it basically turns him into a god. And he takes advantage of that power in his profession.
And how?
Okay, sorry about that. I was busy. Sorry.
That's all good, man.
It's all good, Slim.
Oh,
welcome.
Let me fix my audio real quick. Okay, there we go. Should be good. I remember getting really into the Darkness comics. During like when I was really getting deeper into it, like when I was 14.
I think I was like around that age, either 14 or 16. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was it was that age where I was into Image. I was into Battle Chasers, a bit of Witchblade, The Darkness, Spawn. it was just that phase you go through where it's just dark and tits, darkness, evil abominations and tits is what's shoved to your face more often than not.
I mean, nothing wrong with that.
I mean, that's the best way to describe almost like, and that's another thing I always say is like these properties, Witchblade, Darkness, Spawn, stuff like that, the stuff that came out in the 90s, they are peak 90s. Like,
Yep,
when
they
you
are.
think of the era of comics in the 90s, these are the properties the best kind of describe the landscape of the 90s.
And it was glorious that way.
Oh yeah, like,
Yes, indeed it was.
I mean, the words. There was like oversaturation of the market, of course, but it was still a defining moment in comics at the time in the 90s.
Yeah.
hmm
yeah, because the way I always saw it is that like, so again, like, I never read like the Darkness comic until much later. And I mean, when I say read the comic, I'm talking about like the original comic, like the actual Darkness canon, not the video game tie-in. And like I said, it's very different. And again, when I read, I was like a teenager, so I didn't know what I mean, I knew literature, but I wasn't really big into literature or anything like that. So, you don't really notice these things. So then, come fast forward to today, I'm rereading this stuff, Witchblade, Darkness. They're not bad, but
They're products of their time.
it's a little bit more than that, because I remember, like, to say that they're kind of messy, those first few issues. Like, those first few arcs for each story are kind of like, they're kind of a mess, and they're kind of hard to kind of. I could see someone reading these issues and not going further, and not necessarily blaming them for it. You know what I mean?
I mean, like that. I mean, like that's in my opinion anyway. I think that's like true for any story, any medium anyway. Like, not every, like, you're not always gonna. I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, looking back, it was very cluttered, very messy, and all that stuff. But I'd say that's true for any series, regardless whether it's animated shows or TV, whatever. Any early on season or installment is not going to be as good until they find their footing. I think it's just par for the course.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. That's why it's really hard for me to judge a comic on its first issue. Like, you have to do something really bad for me to be like, I hate this on the first issue.
Yeah.
Like,
Look at
Yeah,
Mom.
but just like the first season of a show, or even the first few issues of a book series, being a novel or comic book, it gets better as the story and characters progress over time, and you can see the evolution of the artist and the writer, as they find their tone.
I will say that as these series went on, as I got deeper into it, it definitely does get better with each one. I will say, like, I feel like I might be being a little biased here, because the Darkness was my first of these two properties to kind of get into. I think the Darkness is slightly better, only because that it's a bit more satirical in how it handles certain things. Like, I know I posted it on Twitter where the guy describing the Darkness is like, "Have you ever seen Star Wars?" And the girl's like, "Yes." It's like the Darkness is the Force on crack, and stuff like that.
That's
Like,
yeah,
pretty-
I remember.
That's actually not that bad.
I remember.
That script.
I remember. I had this old Darkness comic, and it was during the arc where he kind of became basically like this South American drug lord and
Yeah, Curse.
cartel.
That's the one I started with, actually.
Yeah, he's cartel leader, and he's like,
2007 run.
what'd you say?
he said,
that's
that's a 2007 run.
Yeah,
That's the 2007 run you were referring to.
I'm 21, dude. Like, I got to these when I was 14. So I'm just telling you right now, I'm not gonna be. I'm the youngest person here. Just putting that out there.
I'm around your age, around the 20s, my friend.
Yeah. So I remember watching that. And I remember this description. It was so insane. He's like, Do you know how good this stuff is? This would be like.
Oh,
this
you're
would
talking
be
about the
like,
drug he made out of the darkness?
Yeah, drug made out of the darkness. This is like
Yeah.
getting like what he said, something like getting a solid gold yacht. And while Jessica Alba jacked you off.
I think it was gives you head or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like
And it's like
that.
you pick the drug over that every time. I think it's like he
Yo.
ended that.
Yeah, it was but here's the thing, it was so weird. He was like, and more I think about it, didn't make any sense because he said, "Oh yeah, this is that it's that wonderful," but the only problem is there's only one side effect. It's extremely addictive. And I'm like,
That's like every drug ever, though.
yeah, like that's
Mhm.
that's not that. He says it like it's no big deal. Like, oh well, there are no negative side effects. It's extremely addictive, and you'll do anything to get it. I'm like,
That's a side effect.
that's a side effect.
That's a big
what?
side effect.
That's a big side effect.
A major side effect.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like I know at some point, like especially in the later, we'll say later half, but like later in the comics, especially like the later runs of Darkness, especially like the Darkness becomes. It's. I mean, it is technically a character in and of itself. It becomes more of a character as the series goes on, but it is like almost like a plot convenience sometimes as well.
Yeah, because
Like-
this dude, in the like it really is.
Like,
And
if
this
you
is
thought
kind of
Jackie wasn't killable in the game, you ain't seen shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
here's the thing. It's kind. I've always had this problem with like Symbionite type in comic books where they're just virtually invincible. Like I really always had a like they usually have like a few weaknesses like Symbiotes and symbiotes and Marvel at first were like okay, sound, fire, like all these, but they've literally become they literally don't have any weaknesses as far as I know of anymore. Like I
Oh,
can't
they
think
got
of
rid
any.
of all that?
Most of them, like
Yeah,
Oh, what the
symbiotes as a
hell?
whole still have weaknesses, but like the specific ones, like Carnage is no longer vulnerable to fire because he like sold his like soul to like not Mephisto, but some kind of devil entity. So now he's literally immune to fire.
He sold his soul to Cthulhu.
Yeah,
They-
like he
they-
sold his soul and now he's immune to fire.
like they literally blew up the planet at one point and he was still alive.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Because they could.
It's stupid. It's
What the
so
fuck?
stupid.
but see,
Once again,
I think
it's
that's
because,
part of the
because
charm
of the
of
thing he made with
these.
the code. It's why he has that immunity.
I think that's part of the charm, especially especially because Witchblade has these moments too. We'll get to Witchblade because I know we're kind of talking more about the darkness, but I feel like that's part of the charm of it because, like, again, it kind of plays off the fact that like how ridiculous this is, and I think they kind of balance it out, especially as the run goes on later. Is that having the darkness? It starts off kind of cool, like it's supposed to be like this really cool thing, but as life goes on with it, you realize that it's a curse, not a blessing, and they sort of drive it home in the first few issues with the darkness, but they do it again. They do it in a very funny way, so it's kind of hard to take it too seriously. Where oh god, so who read the first few issues of Darkness again, like the main run?
I am.
I haven't read it
I
recently, admittedly.
I meant to get back to it, but I'm busy with the Simp Olympics. I've been like drowning in that. I've been doing that and drawing and a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, I've been drowning in novel revisions for like the past 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
So-
I actually read the first. I actually read the first issues of The Darkness, and I remember, in one of the issues, Tronatine told Jackie that he can't have sex with women because he is the new host of The Darkness.
Yes, so yeah,
If he
like
ever
that-
has a son, the darkness will just kill him.
No, well, yeah. Later on, they explain that, but early on, it's basically just like if you ever have sex with a woman, you will get her pregnant, and the darkness will be in that new child. Like that's how they originally describe it. And Jackie, straight up, is like screaming, like no, and like
So
that's
it's so it's like Son of the Mask. The Son of the Mask ripped off the darkness.
yeah, like it's basically like it's so funny how it happens too because like. There's like this cult who basically worship the darkness, and they want Jackie to be their like
Of the Brotherhood of
Messiah.
Darkness.
Yeah, the Brotherhood of Darkness, and or the Dark Brother. Yeah, the Brotherhood of Darkness, and
Wrong
they're like,
franchise, Brother. Dark Brotherhood. You must say Dark
yeah, I was
Brotherhood.
about to
Yeah,
say
that's
Dark
the wrong. I
Brotherhood,
think you in the wrong franchise, sir.
but like the cult leader, he's like looking for Jackie, and he's talking to like this bartender, and she's like, "Well, if you're looking for Jack, he just left," and talks about he left with a woman, and the cult leader is like, "No, we gotta stop him. We have to stop Jackie Estacado from having sex."
Cannot nut. He
You-
must not.
wait a minute, but guys, wait a minute. I thought you guys were, I thought you guys weren't the Catholic Church. What the hell?
It's like it's so dumb. The fact that like they're screaming it. It's the cliffhanger of the episode of the comic.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, and then a
Well-
little bit later on, some of the villains who are all bikini clad. Would they be considered angels, or what the hell are they?
Are you talking about
They're-
the Angelus?
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Angelus.
Yeah.
we'll get into that too because that's kind of tied more into the it's more into the darkness, but it's also kind of where the Witchblade comes in to play.
Yeah.
But
and
yeah,
also,
like
also Magdalena, which is also
My-
connected to the darkness and Witchblade.
yeah, there's a lot of connections to it. But yeah, like basically like part of the like in joke for especially like that first few like issues is basically like Jackie.
I know.
Like, I gotta find something to do, man.
I gotta ask something. I know for a fact that Witchblade is canon in the Spawn universe. But is Darkness canon in Spawn too, or am I just
No.
fucking no?
That would be interesting if they were.
That would be interesting, especially in the darkness. There is technically an explanation because, like, the darkness is not the devil. There is another Satan. There is hell and all that. The darkness is its own separate.
Yeah, I know
It's weird.
that. But
It's so weird. Like the canon for these stories is really, really weird.
because I know for a fact, like I remember very vividly that Witchblade is canon in the Spawn universe. I know that. I remember that much.
And vice versa, because like Spawn
Yeah.
is canon to Witchblade, because there is a direct reference, to what's it called? One of the first Witchblade crossovers, I think, which is medieval Spawn and Witchblade.
Yeah, I know that much.
Like it's directly referenced in the first arc of Witchblade, which is really weird. Like considering like how the franchises kind of like go, and even towards like later on, because I know they kind of redid medieval Spawn Witchblade, like they did another version of it. And again, it's like it's supposed to be canon to both universes, but then it's like the rest of the Witchblade stuff isn't canon to Spawn and stuff. So
That is pretty confusing.
it's very confusing.
Oh man, and I just went out of Jack and Coke.
Oh yeah, you're gonna need a lot, especially as we kind of go deeper. So yeah, like the darkness is it's definitely the more satirical side of things. You can kind of tell what angle they were going for.
Yeah, they were a little more tongue in cheek with the darkness.
Yeah.
At points.
Now.
Yeah, like I remember like even like I remember how like every time Jackie used it, instead of like being like saying like I remember in the games they were very melodramatic. I only played the first game. And now I vaguely remember that, but I remember playing the first game and they treated like, "Oh, I hate becoming the darkness. The darkness consumes my soul." But I remember in the comics, every time he uses the darkness, he does get weaker. But at the end of the day, it's more like he's fucking hungover, and it's fucking hilarious.
So yeah, that's another thing, and we'll kind of jump into it because like I want to touch on Witchblade because they both share this kind of. I guess you could call it trend, problem, however you want to call it, but like they do kind of get better over time, especially when it comes to like some of the stakes and stuff. Because early on, there's stakes for each character, but it is one of those where it's kind of like arbitrary in a way where it's more like, oh, the stakes are someone else being in danger, like people being in danger. You not so much, but like
standard.
In Witchblade, like the original Witchblade. And again, I never really read. I read Witchblade years ago, and then I reread it for this, and I never really. Let me phrase that. When I read the original run, I was a teenager, so again, like I didn't have a good handle on storytelling, writings, things like that. But when I reread like that first run of Witchblade, I'm not gonna lie, I was having trouble getting through some of those first few issues.
Damn.
Like the story's interesting, but there is a lot of like unnecessary dialogue. Like,
Oh yeah.
God,
Like it could give what do you call it? Some of the modern, more progressive comics a run for their money. I mean, granted, what you had to read was important to the story, but damn.
let me
I
see if I
mean,
can.
that's always been a thing in that's always been a thing in comics lately. It just really depends on how you frame it.
Yeah.
Because here's how I frame everything. If you start having these long winded, really big discussions early on in your book, I think you're, and I'm just gonna say it. It's kind of a sign of a pretentious writer, because that means you feel like you have so much story. It's such important dialogue to pack into the first few issues of the first few parts of your story, instead of letting it actively progress as time goes on. Because because these when you have these long, eloquent sentences and all this grand dialogue, um, it makes sense when there's so much story and so many things and so much observation you've done with these characters for so long that you need to unpack. A great example of this, in my opinion, might be if you look at uh, let me think of a good example. Fullmetal Alchemist is a great example. Fullmetal Alchemist starts off as really simple, right? It's pretty damn simple. You can follow it easy. There's not like a whole lot of philosophical dialogue early on. It's basically just some minor exposition, a few jokes, and like you just it's very simple. They keep it very simple. But as the story goes on, and you get to say when you get more involved in these characters, and you get to look back and you see these characters analyze each other because you've been through so much, that's when I think it's appropriate to have all this like lines and lines of dialogue that go on for a while, because that's where the intrigue is, because you're basically going over everything along with these characters at this point. But when it's early on in your story, I think it's very unnecessary, if
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes
it
because
any
really
sense.
depends on like what kind. It also depends on what genre you're into.
because I think what because I know I remember Jay. We kind of talked about it earlier on Twitter, but like about how like the artwork has a lot of detail in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then so that's like a really cool thing, and I do think the artwork in both these titles, even early on, is pretty solid. And to me, that is enough. That to me, that's enough of a recommendation to somebody. Like even if you don't like the story, like you'll really love the artwork at the very least. However, I do one thing I will say is that like there's so much detail in what's going on, but then you have so many words, and it's like for me at least, I would find myself reading the dialogue, not really liking it, and I would just focus on the artwork instead. And I was like, you're putting so much detail in the artwork, you might as well let the artwork kind of tell the story itself, especially this early on. Because like I know the Witchblade, they try their best to like play up the mystery angle of it, which is not that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They try their best to kind of like make you kind of question what's the Witchblade, what's going on, and things like that. And I feel like a lot of the dialogue, they're trying their best to kind of keep that mystery, but then you kind of get moments where it's completely unnecessary because the dialogue's not really telling you anything. It's more like there'll be like a restaurant full of mobsters, and the dialogue is telling you how this is a restaurant where all the mobsters come to hang out, and it's like, okay, but you've already shown me this. Like the artwork
Okay,
is,
that's annoying.
yeah. And another thing that kind of doesn't help it is that like, well, the darkness was a bit more satirical, definitely a bit more comedic. Witchblade, it has its comedic moments, but it takes itself I won't say too seriously, but it takes itself much more seriously than the darkness. And sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing. Like because at some point, like it's kind of grounded at first, and then as more of the supernatural things come in, it's it stops being as grounded, and then at that point you kind of start thinking to yourself, all right, so we're gonna start moving away from this serious tone, right? But no, it kind of maintains that serious tone pretty much throughout its entire like run.
Well, still though, I mean, at least with I guess I still found Witchblade pretty awesome until Michael Turner stopped doing it. But he kind of came down with a case of death. So
Yeah, but so that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll definitely.
Yeah, I gotta actually do some research to see if he stopped, if it was. I hate to bring the mood down because he did stop because of cancer. So that was a pretty rough deal that he got. So afterwards, he was replaced by several different artists. But one thing I want to check is, well, first of all, the date that he stopped, because I have to double check that again. But more so, have you noticed that all the art that we're seeing from Witchblade is actually not from the current version of Witchblade, but it's all from the 90s?
Yeah,
if you actually take a look, besides, of course, the one that I showed you. Good Lord, that was terrible.
There's one in here, but
yeah, there's one version where it actually looks like body armor, and it's just like, okay, that's functional, but why?
Yeah, like
Are you talking about
like
the one was stuff on stage yet?
Yo,
It
the
looked like-
anime one, I gotta track that down. That looks awesome.
Yeah, I heard the anime one is apparently like really fucking popular.
It's good. I actually saw the whole series. It's on Hulu if you want to see it.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
on
I watched-
Hulu? Oh shit.
Oh yeah, it's on Hulu. I found that
I
out.
watched like the first 4 episodes before what happened? Pretty much the thing I was watching it on just stopped working after episode 4. So I was all right. That's enough for me to get a taste of what was going on. But yeah, like, I'm not too big into anime, but I will say it was good. Especially like both of the stories kind of do the same thing, where like they introduce you to the Witchblade, and they trying to play up the mystery angle of it. But again, I think the anime does a lot better because again, there's not a lot of unnecessary like dialogue and stuff going on. But one thing I will say though, and like this is not a negative complaint. But they take the fan service to the 10th degree in that. It's not a negative complaint though. Like
Yeah, it
not a bad
is it's clearly an ecchi series. Like
Yeah,
it's
well,
clearly an ecchi series. Like they're not hiding that fact at all. Like it's they know. Yeah, this was made with sexual. They are very clear.
I mean, looking at the art for the comic, I mean,
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong,
not
the
exactly
comic.
barking up a wrong tree or anything.
Yeah, the comic does it too, but it was kind of like the comic kind of like plays up like what they did with again Spawn of the Darkness, kind of making like this tendril alien-esque type deal. The anime from what I it just looks like something you see out of Kill la Kill.
yeah, it's
Well,
more like
there's some differences that might be
Yeah,
interesting to kind of talk about when it comes to Witchblade for the comic, at least for the 90s, versus what we saw for the anime. Well, first of all, I'm not sure if y'all know this, but she can literally shoot fire or some kind of energy from her suit.
Yeah, I
which is actually
noticed
kinda
that.
cool. She doesn't have that power in the anime. She does have a lot of bladey powers. And when she goes, I guess you could say
You say
Ultra
lady
Instinct.
powers or lady powers?
I think
Bladey
it meant
powers.
Bladey.
Okay.
Like she can get blades out of her body. Her hair can have blades and get kind of.
Oh, she going Bayonetta.
Oh yeah, she goes Bayonetta.
Using her hair as a weapon.
But yeah, she has no firepower, unlike Witchblade, where she does have literal firepower. And apparently, and this is one thing that I didn't see in like many comics afterwards. Apparently, she could temporarily raise people from the dead. She did it once.
Yeah.
And I think like the end of comic 1, beginning of comic 2, it was really weird.
Ooh.
But the guy ended up dying again. But it was
Yeah, it's weird because they
just kinda-
never touch upon it again, and I don't think they touch upon it. I think they don't touch upon it in like those first few runs. Like it's never brought up again.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, Slim.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to send you what I was making for the SEM thing when it's done. But I'm building something for it, and I just turned on the textures for it. It's like, oh shit, this is kind of cool. It's not even done yet.
That sounds awesome. Also, I've also been getting a bunch of picks for people on the. Oh, I'm sorry, we're talking business on the stream. Sorry,
Yeah, let's
sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up.
back
I
to
just
this.
noticed.
Okay.
But one thing I will say about the anime though is that the only thing, and this not really a negative complaint because it's a different adaptation. It's completely separate from everything else. Um, and again, it works best because it's telling its own self-contained story. The only downside is I actually really like the lore and stuff behind the Witchblade and like its origin. And again, it's not really a negative complaint because I know it's a different adaptation. They're trying to tell a certain story with this adaptation. However, it does kind of feel like, as someone who read the comics beforehand, before watching the anime, it does feel like there's something missing, knowing that lore isn't there. But at the same time, I understand that it's not there for a reason.
Without giving too many spoilers, you're not going to find out much else about it. You only know that the Witchblade's been around for a long time and only women can wear it.
Oh yeah, it was a live action show. I remember. I forgot about that.
Yep. So one thing that's kind of interesting about the Witchblade anime is they actually make what's called clone blades. So they kind of, it's like a replica of the Witchblade, but it has some pretty steep consequences using it. In fact, the Witchblade itself also has consequences of using it as well. If you use it too much, or you overuse what do you call it, the overdrive mode too much, it can potentially kill you. So unlike what we saw from the comic, this Witchblade does have some pretty steep consequences for use.
Well, the comic Witchblade also has some consequences, but they're not really like overtly stated. I think again, like as these comics go on, I will say either they start flushing out certain things better, or they start adding things that kind of make it feel more fleshed out. But I think that is one thing, is that later, like the Witchblade starts having some consequences to it. It's not to the same degree as the
I forgot to
anime.
mute my phone.
There you're good. Like I don't think it's to the same degree as the anime. Like overlong use will kill you, but I think it's more or less like wearing the Witchblade. Yeah, it gives you awesome powers, but essentially, it's going to ruin your life for the most part, just because of like what it attracts to you and what its role in the like myth in the mythology is.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those where it's like the minute you get this, your life's kind of pretty much done.
Well, one thing that was kind of cool. Am I allowed to give certain spoilers, or would you prefer I didn't?
I mean, the anime's been out for years.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the anime. I'm talking about the comic.
Oh god, yes. Go ahead. Like at this point now, like I mean, there's not really much. Well, there's some spoilers, but at this point, like you would have read it by now, at least.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was kind of happy about was Sarah eventually finds a dude, and I don't know if they got married or not. I'll have to double check that, but they do have a kid, which I thought, oh, she kind of got a happy-ish ending. That's nice.
Oh, that's
Are you talking about Hope?
Well,
I thought she marries Jackie.
No.
So, no. It ain't Jackie. It's someone else.
Well,
no. Because she does have a daughter, but
I mean,
I think it is
Jackie is
kid.
the father of Hope.
Oh, so Jackie has a kid without the whole darkness trying to kill him.
So like the story, like again, these comics get fucking crazy, especially towards like the later half. Like not even talking about like the crossover stuff, like just the lore and how the stories develop. Because again, initially, like just kind of give you the rundown. In the comics, the darkness is literally the darkness of the universe. Like that's what it is. It existed before the universe, and it basically wants to return the universe to kind of that state of emptiness.
Hey, guys, I gotta go real quick. My sisters are cleaning the kitchen, and my mom wants me to. Well, she wants me to actually clean the kitchen. If you get my drift.
All right, man, it's all good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Sorry.
Gotcha.
All right, man, later.
All right, man, it's all good.
That reminds me of a Cleveland show episode where where one kid thinks that he's like the best at bowling and stuff like that, and then his mom basically tells the person who works at the bowling alley, "Okay, take away the training lane." And then the kid started really sucking at bowling. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" And he's like, "Oh!" And then they went into a whole song about that how kids suck at everything.
Yeah, I think I remember that episode.
That's funny.
So, just before I lose what I was saying though, like when it comes to like the lore, it's like basically the darkness is literally the darkness of the universe. And if I remember correctly, like I might be getting the game lore and the comic lore confused. I know some of it kind of differs, but from what I understand, like in the comics as well, God created the universe, like God, but the darkness didn't really like that, so it started kind of waging its own war to kind of revert the universe back to what it once was, and it started using like human hosts. Like it would find a host, join with them, and you basically use them as a conduit to cause a bunch of chaos. So God eventually created like the Angelus, which was supposed to be its polar opposite, and its job was to hunt down the darkness wherever it popped up and kill it.
Yeah.
The issue, though,
That's correct.
is that the Angelus is so purely the opposite of the darkness that she herself is also pretty much batshit crazy as well.
Yeah, she's bad.
Yeah, the Angelus is pretty much the archetype of light is not good, because she is a zealous of law and order.
Oh yeah,
So she's kind of like Judge Dredd, but more nuts.
Yes,
and a hell of a lot
like,
hotter.
Yes.
like
Yeah.
she's like because don't make no mistake, Jackie Estacado, he's the main character, but he is not the good guy.
No, he.
However, the Angelus certainly is not the good guy either. Like some of the stuff she does, like in general, is like she very much has that like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, but at the same time, it's like you doing any kind of sin to her is bad enough for her to annihilate you. Is
She
basically
basically
how-
has
Jaywalking,
no
she'll
show.
probably kill you. That
yeah,
gets you the death sentence.
right. And so like so they're basically waging this war since like the dawn of time, and it's not really going anywhere. Like as much as she like may destroy like the host of the darkness just finds a new host. And same thing with her. The darkness may destroy her host, but she finds a new one eventually. So at some point, they kind of have like a truce, so to speak, where they create the Witchblade, which is it's like in the way it's described, it's basically like their daughter, in a sense. And so basically, whoever wields the Witchblade is supposed to keep the balance between the darkness and the Angelus from going too crazy.
That doesn't always work, though.
It doesn't work.
It does
almost
not.
Never, because it's like, even though technically, like the Witchblade can keep both of them in check, the host is still like the host on its own without the host of the darkness and the host of the angels are basically gods. The Witchblade's host, yeah, they have the powers of a god, but they're still a mortal person. And not everyone can just wield the Witchblade. Like it has to be like a woman, and it has to be like a specific woman per like era.
Also, just a quick correction: the Witchblade is actually the son of the Witchblade and Darkness, not the daughter. However, the hosts are generally female.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
Witchblade is technically male.
right.
That's confusing as hell.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And the
No
war
pun
gets-
intended.
It gets crazier as they add in some more of like the extra characters and stuff, because I know like they have this whole like artifacts multiverse, not multiverse, but like shared universe kind of thing. Like there's other artifacts that kind of play into it. There's different people that have certain roles on either side of like there's some people who like they serve God but not necessarily the Angelus, and the Angelus is still their enemy. There's some people who they serve the darkness.
Wasn't that like the Magdalena or something like that? That's
Yeah,
kind of like
she's one
that.
of them. Yeah, she's one
Like
of the
she
witches.
fight like they're against the darkness, but they also don't like the Angelus either.
Yeah, because the Angelus is like the extreme of the light. And,
Yeah, it's light when it has no chill.
Yeah, it has absolutely no chill. Like, I think even at one point it even says, like, if it could find the host of the darkness, like, I think at one point she did kill, like, the host of the darkness before it became of age. Like, while it was still a child, just to prevent it, but she realized that all that does is, like, yeah, it just jumps to a new host, so it doesn't really do anything. So that's why she doesn't just kill the host when they're children, as opposed to, it's not the right thing to do.
So it's kind of like the Avatar in that respect.
Yes.
That's pretty funny.
Oh my god, I just had the worst image. Now, please bear in mind that this horrible mentality or this horrible mental image, everyone's 18. For some reason, Aang dies, but it happens a lot earlier, and basically we now have Toph looking like the Witchblade.
Oh.
Oh,
Lord.
Oh, God, you're going to have to post that on Twitter.
Yeah, you're going to have to show me that, because I've seen some aged up images of Toph, and it's like, good God.
Oh, yeah, it would be total cake.
It's like the cake on the scroll is ridiculous. That's that comic they just flashed the Darkness Complete. I actually am tempted to buy that soon because it's supposed to have all of it.
Yeah, I got the two collections. I got the two collections myself, like Volume 1 and Volume 2.
And it's hardcover because my version of the omnibus thing is paperback. And the thing was, when I was moving from campus at one point, somehow it got damaged in transit, and the bindings come undone for like the middle of the book.
Ooh.
And that was $50.
Ooh. Oh,
so
please!
I'm
At least you didn't pay
it about that.
Oh, please! At least you didn't pay $100 or $100 like I did for one of the Star Wars Dark Horse comics that I saw on Amazon.
Ooh.
Oh.
And that was
which one?
That was. Hold on, I got it somewhere in this collection. Hold on. Where was it? Where did I freaking put that thing? Oh yes. That was the Star Wars Legacy, Broken Legacy Volume 1.
Oh damn!
And that was the thin stuff. Like it just collects the first few issues or whatever, paperback. But until Disney released it in the Legends Omnibus, whatever it's called. Yeah, I paid $100 for the first volume thing.
No shame, man. We've all spent money on stuff that either gets cheaper later or just similar stories. But yeah,
I've had that happen with Steam. Pay full price for a game 3 days later, it goes on sale.
That not bad, but I got one worse.
What?
When you're let's see, I'm trying to remember what age Aisha was. 14. There was a game called Dracula X Rondo of Blood. If any of you have ever played a Castlevania game,
I've heard of that.
This is the Castlevania game before Symphony of the Night. And it was only available on PC Engine. Now, I ended up getting a system that would play it. And it was TurboGrafx 16. And the game itself, you could not get it in the United States. You had to import it from Japan.
Oh, no.
$100.
Oh, no.
Oh,
you got to remember, this is before CD technology hit the mainstream, like PlayStation and to a lesser degree, Sega Saturn. Let's just say PlayStation. So not only were you going to pay premium price, but you were also going to pay the import price. And then, let's see, I think it was a decade later, maybe even a little bit more than a decade and a couple of years later, they had it for PSP, an enhanced version for about $20. Oh no, it gets better. Not only do you get the enhanced version, but the PSP version also comes with the original PC Engine version, which is now in English because it wasn't in English before. So whatever they said, you had no idea because no one bothered to translate it.
And there was no way to patch it with a translation patch.
Nope, because it is a CD game, and it also gave you the Symphony of the Night for good measure. So for $20, I got 3 fantastic games. And to add another insult to injury, you want to play it on TV? Now they have it on PS4.
Yep.
Oof.
So
That's why I'm like hesitant to buy any like. I mean, just comics is a little bit different because sometimes it's like, sometimes it's not in print anymore, and so you'll be, you just kind of have to be careful with what you buy. But there's very rare times where it'll get a proper reprint, especially some things. But it's like, oh man, you just gotta be careful with some of that stuff because it's like you just never know. Like, what was it? I remember I told someone to buy like, I think I got him to buy one of like the Predator ombuses, like the ones that are out of print.
I have the
And then,
Alien one digitally.
Yeah, and then like at almost like a week or so later, Dark Horse came out with like the Essentials collection, which was basically like a reprint of the ombuses. And I was like, I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
Yeah, you gotta feel like an asshole.
The only plus side was that like the Ombus had more comics and stories in it as opposed to like the Essentials collection has like very specific stories. But still, I was like, damn, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me.
Well, I mean, when it comes to comics too, also remember that not every comic eventually is going to get into Legends, nor eventually go to digital. I mean, we've seen so many Witchblade comics in this slideshow alone that are still not digitized. I mean, I was lucky enough to get freaking Red Sonja and Witchblade, but the really good ones, because I found other methods to read them. I'd rather not say how I did that.
So there's not like a complete digitized version.
Well, there is now.
Well, there is now. A pirate's life for me.
So the thing that happened is not too long ago, Top Cow did like a couple of Kickstarters where basically it was like the complete Darkness, the complete Witchblade collections. Like it was like big. You can get them like hardcovers, you can get them like paperbacks, but essentially there was these big, giant, well-made books, and it's just the initial runs of each series. And so I know, looking on like Comixology and stuff like that, I've seen those versions for sale, but that's it. And I don't think they're like heavily edited because I noticed there's like a typo in like the original Witchblade run, and then I double checked I checked online to see if that typo was in the original comic, and then I checked my copy and it's still there. So
that's pretty cool.
Like to me, like that's one of those things where it's like it's kind of cool. You could call it lazy, but at the same time, I prefer them to. If they're gonna remaster, if they're gonna re-release something, I'd rather them re-release it unedited, as opposed to trying to make all the small little changes, because then that leads to bigger changes.
Suppose like we're gonna try and fix it.
Yeah, Mass Effect, freaking Legendary Edition.
Oh yeah, the legendary butt nerf.
Yep, which some hero without a cape brought it back. So I'm like,
yeah, it's the same guy who did the mod to remove the butt shot in the first game. He playing both sides.
Yeah. He's smart. He's doing the arms dealer route. You arm both sides of the conflict.
Get my butt shots. I'm happy.
That should be the next stream conversation. The Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, the butt shots.
Call it Ass Effect.
No. No, that's only when you talked about Andromeda.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. That's the Andromeda one.
I mean, just like Dragon Ball.
Andromeda is Ass Effect.
Don't talk about it.
Speaking of Ass Effect, though, but again, I know we talked about it earlier, but these comics are heavy in the fan service department, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm never gonna argue with that. However, I will say this: anyone who says like it's only for the women, they're absolutely lying. Like the dudes in these comics, they're like
the dudes in the comics are pretty jacked. Listen, at least in the
of,
Darkness, it's like y'all look kind of ripped.
It reminds me of you guys.
Hey, look at that.
I know you guys have seen the '90s Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, it's like that. That's actually a good comparison.
Every character is buff, and it's like even the characters
even the homeless people are swole. In 90s Spider-Man.
Peter Parker, like the nerdy Peter Parker, who kind of hides his superhero persona, is still jacked as hell. And
you could just tell. It's like, dude, you buffed.
Flash Thompson comes up to him, trying to make fun of him. It's like, dude, that guy is bigger than you.
It's like, Jack, what are you doing, man? He's swole. Don't fuck with him.
Yeah, like I know for a fact, like in Witchblade, like there's a dude, what's his name, Ian Nottingham. He's like one of like
Oh
the
yeah.
first villains. First of all, dude is a badass. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna put it in here, I forgot to. There's like a scene where he like he basically assassinate. First of all, like someone tries to assassinate his boss, he catches the bullets in his hand.
Damn.
Like,
With his fingers, for goodness sake.
yeah, like the guy they shoot at his boss. He literally just catches the bullets, drops him in someone's champagne, goes outside with a sword. As the guy's like driving to get away, he jumps and like slices the car roof and the guy in half. And I'm
God
like,
damn.
and like again, like there's plenty of shots of him where he's just standing there shirtless, and you could it's very clear what they're trying to do. It's like, look at this guy, he's a god.
Yep.
So,
But of course,
like,
people
He's
probably
just flexing on them.
mhm.
yeah. And yet, for some reason, his boss is still more of a threat than he is. Because I remember he kind of fucked up something, and his boss let him have the business. Like his punishment, I hope it was a punishment, anyways. Was they were in some basement and he put him in some kind of weird full leather suit, and they were doing some kind of weird torture.
Yeah,
to
he
the
was
guy.
like waterboarding him essentially. Like
Oh, we going to break out the GIMP territory in here?
it's straight up a gimp suit. Like it is straight up a gimp.
Oh yeah.
Just break out the GIMP.
But I mean, like in like
I didn't know that was coming in Pulp Fiction. I was like, what the fuck? The guy said GIMP. I was like, what the fuck? And it's like, oh, he's actually breaking out a GIMP. That wasn't a joke or an insult or something. Oh fuck.
it is
Now,
so
one thing
like
I was. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Just random thought. Did the Gimp actually die, or was he knocked out?
I think
No,
I don't know
he
if he died. I'm
He died.
pretty sure I'm pretty shocked if that guy didn't get
died.
killed from that shit.
He
If
died.
anything else, he probably died because no one went to check on him.
Probably.
Because yeah, like no, I don't think he died. He got let me put it this way: he got knocked out, but they were both left to the mercy of Marcellus Wallace. So
Yeah, good
take
luck
that
with
at what
that.
you will.
Yeah, and didn't he? And considering what happened with that, I don't think Marcellus is in a merciful mood.
I'm gonna get medieval on you. Like
Yeah, I don't think he's in a good mood or a
Yeah.
merciful mood after that.
But he was in a forgiving mood to the one guy for fucking up that boxing match. He
speaking
was
of
ready. He was ready to have a worldwide search for him, but after what happened with those guys, he's like,
just
"You be gone."
sees him in the car while he's got a box of donuts.
That was fantastic.
Just motherfucker.
Yeah, like they just happen to catch each other. But speaking of medieval, I do want to talk about medieval Spawn and Witchblade, because this is where we start getting into like, especially like the crossovers and the weird like continuity when it comes to these comics.
I read that. If it's the story I'm thinking of, that really wasn't one of the better stories.
There's like two of them, and I've read both of them, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I don't think either one of them are as good as they could have been.
Well, the
that's
one
a
I'm thinking
shame.
about has like terrible art.
Is it the one where they use like a bunch of 3D models?
It looks like it, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's the newer one, and so like what ended up happening was, at least from my context, I don't know like the full context behind the stories, but like I remembered like Medieval Spawn Witchblade was coming out, the 3D one, like the newer one, and so while it was coming out, I went and bought like the digital versions online of the original Spawn Witchblade because I like Spawn, and again I like Witchblade, so I was like, this ought to be cool. And as I was reading it, so one of the things that's pretty straightforward with a lot of these is that like these are the kind of comics where like usually if you find a comic of these characters in a different time period, it's like a different host. Like that's usually how it goes. So it's not Al Simmons, it's not Sarah wielding the Witchblade. It's like different people, and it starts off fine enough, but like it doesn't really go anywhere in its story. Like it almost feels like a part one of another story, like one that's like there's so much left open ended. It's almost like there's some other story you're supposed to read right after this. And at first I thought it was like Witchblade, but it's not. I think it's whatever was currently the Witchblade story at the time.
So we're having the comic syndrome where it's like, oh, you got to read this to really appreciate this.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I think, and if I remember correctly, like the 3D Witchblade does the same thing. It does the exact same thing where it's like, you got to read this next story in order to see the payoff of this story.
Ugh.
Have any of you guys seen the new Gundam movie on Netflix?
I have not.
Oh,
It has that problem because I didn't realize. I knew it was part of the main canon timeline. Because Gundam's weird because UC is like the canon, the main timeline, then all the other stuff is like things in alternate timelines or whatever. And I didn't realize it's like, this is like it ties into these other things. It's like building off of these other things that I haven't seen yet, and I didn't know it till after I watched it and looked it up because I felt like I was missing a whole lot of context. It turns out, I was, and it's like you got to watch the original series. You got to watch Char's counterattack to know who this character is, and it feels like it just ends like it's not bad. It's actually good, but it feels like an entry in a story that was like much bigger than just the one movie. Like it almost feels like this is like I don't know. I'm trying to explain it, but it's like you need to watch this other shit to actually appreciate this, and then it feels like part one of a bigger story.
Yeah, like one of the first, I guess you could call it, events in Witchblade and Darkness is like what's called Family Ties, and it's like the first crossover the two sides have, and basically like the arc is called Family Ties. Part 1 and 2, like part 1 is like no. Part 1 is a Witchblade story, like it's straight up like a Witchblade issue, and then it says to be continued in the Darkness issue blank, and you literally have to read the Darkness, and it's titled Family Ties Part 2, and then Part 3 is a Witchblade title, and then Part 4 is a Darkness title, and like
if you did that with like one issue, like I could see that because that could be a cool way to get people to read the other series too. Doing it where it's like, okay, so if you want, so part 1 is Witchblade side of it, and then the other part is this other character. And let's say you don't know who the Darkness is, like, oh, what's that? And then you read that and it's like, oh, that character's kind of cool. I can see that. I could read this. I guess that's what they were going for with that.
Because like again, like these two stories are very much connected, especially since like Jackie Estacado, his first appearance is in Witchblade, and like I think they even re-released like I think they re-released his first appearance as like Darkness point zero like 0.5, something like that, 0.5, something like
so
that.
So he actually appeared in Witchblade first.
Yes, like he was assigned to assassinate Sarah, but she had the Witchblade, so he didn't do shit to her.
Yeah, that probably didn't go over well.
Surprisingly, not as bloody as you'd expect.
Yeah, Witchblade is definitely not as bloody as the Darkness. Like the Darkness is definitely the bloodier of the two.
I mean, the game alone, like some of the shit you could do to people, especially the second one.
Oh my god!
Just freaking like grab a guy by his legs and pull them out and then just bisect them.
Speaking of like the games, like I know Witchblade got an anime and a live action TV show. I'm surprised that Witchblade never got like anything else past that.
You know what I was hoping, even though Darkness 2, the game wasn't the greatest, since they introduced the androids, because the only complaint I had about the first one was there wasn't enough supernatural things for you to fight, so because the monsters get kind of boring after a while.
Yeah.
And the second one tried to fix it by having these guys like, oh, they know what the Darkness is. They have countermeasures too, but it's like it still wasn't enough. And then at the end, it's like, oh, the Angelus is here. Oh, okay. Oh, so that's setting up for like the third game or something. Even though I feel like the second game was like half of a game, because I feel like they were trying to put all that into one game, but they couldn't.
Well, apparently, like the second game was rushed. Like
yeah, it felt rushed.
I could tell.
Making it to make it.
It really did feel rushed, and it's a shame because it's like I like what y'all were doing in the game for the most part.
The only negative thing I'll say about the second game is that like, now again, like the game has its own continuity. It's obviously based on the comic, but it is very much its own continuity.
Yeah.
There's no reference to the Witchblade. Sarah's not even like a character in it. There's no like, well, there is a reference to Witchblade in like the first one, but it's more of an Easter egg reference, so I won't really count that. Um, and again, Jackie's character is very different from the comic books in the first one. However, in
he's
the
a lot
second one,
more. He's a lot more. I don't want to say relatable, but understandable. I think is probably a better way to say it.
I would say he's a bit more relatable, but in the sense that he's easier to empathize with.
Yeah, like you can kind of understand where he's coming from.
However, in the second game, his personality is almost completely different.
Yeah,
And it basically they adopt the comics personality and add it to video game Jackie. However, it's like this personality conflicts with the personality you had in the first game.
which I think
And
is probably why they ended up changing his voice actor too, to try and like separate that. Yeah, this isn't the same guy.
But it is though. Like they even
It is, but yeah, it doesn't really help.
It wouldn't make sense if in the Darkness 2 they not like kept the voice actor from the first game, but also be consistent with his characterization as established. And well, the comic book
Like,
Jackie,
I can kind of get him
not that nice,
changing.
well, because also like the way the first game ends, it doesn't make sense as to what happens. Like,
Yeah, because the
the
first
fact that it's-
game,
like
dude actually lost a soul in the first game. If the ending is, still canon.
well, it technically is. So from what I understand, this is what I was reading into, because I replayed both games just to get like a sense, and I was reading. I can't remember what I was reading talking about it, but like basically in the first game, it's emphasized that like yeah, you get the darkness. However, the more you use it, the more it consumes you and essentially becomes you. And so in the first game, the whole point was him trying to get revenge on his uncle Paulie. And so basically it was like in order to get the revenge, he's got to give more and more into the darkness. But, obviously, it's going to consume him. And by the end of the game, it consumes him. Like that's how it ends. Basically, it's like he has one final moment with like his girlfriend Jenny.
Yeah, with Jenny.
She's basically like this is it. They're giving you this like, and they don't really emphasize who's giving him this moment. It's kind of implied it's supposed to be like angels or God or whatever, basically saying like this is your final moment before, it's over for you, and that's how the game ends. And
yeah,
then
like the last
second
line is her saying you have to wake up. Now you have to wake up or something like that.
And then the second game, he's just there. He's just back, and
somehow he's like shut the darkness out completely, so it has no influence on him until he's almost killed.
Yeah,
in the opening.
There is an explanation. Like some crazy dude, I think was his name, Johnny something. Like he's like completely insane, but he knows all about like the darkness, the Angelus.
Yeah, because you can give him artifacts and he'll like tell you what they are.
Mm-hmm.
He even mentions that, oh yeah, this is like the Angelus dude, or related to it, or something like that.
Yeah, and he even like basically like the context is that like he helped Jackie get the darkness under control. But again, it's like the way the first game ended, like there was nothing to gain control over. It was over.
Yeah, I mean, because in the first one, you go back to that weird World War I hell thing, and then you like force the darkness out of you, and then you have to, well, you're not supposed to fight it, but your first thought is to shoot it until it starts like taunting you about that, and then you walk up to it, and it's like, okay, you get control until you kill your Uncle Paulie, then we take your soul.
Yeah, and oh my god, I honestly, I hate to say it, as much as I love the comic, I think the game does a better job in like telling the story, at least from a kind of more of a like just general. I want to say general, but definitely kind of a more like base, more widely acceptable side.
I would say it's definitely. I think it's a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, that's the way I was trying to think of it. It's more accessible to the average person. However, one thing I also really liked was how like while you're in hell in like the darkness one, technically that it was hell, but it was like that was its domain of hell.
Yeah,
and it was basically like just torture. It was torturing its previous like. No, let me rephrase that. What's this?
Well,
like,
no, it was its previous host because you meet your your grandfather, who was like the original member of the family that got it.
Yeah, like he brought the darkness into the Estacado family, and that entire plane of hell, like all those people being tortured, were all there to torture him.
Yeah,
And I'm like you don't realize it, but that's like super, like that's like super petty right there.
it
Like
is.
he's tormenting all these souls just to torment one host because he dared to defy him at one point in time.
You know, now I'm kind of wondering if when Jackie dies, is his going to be like a mafia hell?
Yeah, like again, like this is more so in the games, and this is one thing I will say is that like as the comics went on, like early on, it's very much like a power fantasy. It's not really a bad thing, but there's not that many real downsides to the darkness.
Yeah, the game the game does that too.
The game later on adds some of that downside to it, and I think the comics. I don't want to say this without confirming it, but I do know at some point the comics kind of adopt some more negative aspects of the darkness. I don't know if the games played a factor into that or not, but I do know they kind of at some point the games and the comics kind of more reflect each other in that aspect. But like, yeah, it's like basically it's because like in the Witchblade, like you have the Witchblade, it kind of curses your life, but at the same time, it's like with the darkness, it's like no, your life is screwed.
Your life is fucked.
It's over. Like even when you die, like let's say for some whatever reason, you somehow do a lot of good as the darkness, your soul is still marked for hell because you have it.
Yeah, even if you like, you could be Mr. Rogers and have the darkness, and it's like, nah, you still end up in hell. Not just hell, the darkness is hell.
And like, I think this might be the games. I might be confusing it, but I think in like at some point, like there was a host who removed the darkness from him. Like he gave it to somebody else, or he just simply removed it from him, and that was not good enough for the Angelus, and she still destroyed him.
Oh, you're talking about the African dude who was helping kind of helping Jackie at one point, like showed him how to do some stuff?
I think so. I'm getting some of the lore confused, but like, she straight up like he's like, I abandoned the darkness. I'm no longer its host, and she was pretty much like, that's not good enough, and just destroys him. Like he doesn't even have it in him. Like he can't do anything with it.
He's just human.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucked up. Then again, it's the Angelus. I'm not surprised.
Oh my god! You want to know something else that's kind of funny about reading these comics? Now I don't want to get too. I don't know what the word is. I don't know if this is political. I don't consider it political, but like at some point, like I'm trying to do the best way to describe it. There's like a certain point where they introduce like a villain to the darkness, and she's very much like a man-hating kind of person. Like she straight up says stuff like, "Once I'm done with this, no man's ever gonna hurt an Estacado." Or what's her last name? Franchetti woman again, or something like that. And like her motivation is to get revenge on her father for like basically like screwing over her mother, even though the mother was technically in the wrong of the story. And at first I was like, oh my god, what like I don't like trying to read into context of stories because sometimes that context is not even really there. It's just me piecing it together. But I couldn't help but get a feeling that like they were trying to say something about like this chick. It was kind of funny though.
You know what's one thing in the comic that when I first read it threw me off?
What's up?
I think in the comic is Paulie isn't comes in later, like he's not the one that kills Jenny.
Yeah, like Paulie, he is a character, and again, like the games kind of they pull from the comics, but they're very like picky. But like in the comics, what's his name? What's his name? There's another.
I don't remember his name, but I know it's not Paulie. Like Paulie comes in later.
Yeah, he's still Franchetti, but I can't think of his first name. But like he's like Jackie's like adopted father, and he Jackie have an actually good relationship. So where in the games it's Paulie who adopts him, and they just have a shitty relationship throughout. But
Yeah.
in the comics, I think Paulie does show up later, but their relationship is essentially the same, where they don't really like each other.
Because if I remember correctly, Paulie shows up after Jenny's already dead, and Jackie tried to kill himself to kill whoever had killed Jenny, and then like he comes back as the darkness won't let him die.
Yeah, I think
Darkness is
that's
like, nah, motherfucker, you ain't getting off that easy.
I think that's like the end of the first run. I think that's the end of the first Darkness run where Jenny dies. Jackie technically dies. Like the Dawn of the Franchetti family dies as well. And then like the next run starts with Jackie coming back to life, and that's when it's revealed that like, no, you ain't dying. Like the darkness is not letting you die until it's done with you.
Yeah, the
And part of
darkness is like, dying is not an option for you.
Yeah, and like part of the story later on is like what's the darkness end goal when it comes to its host.
Yeah.
One thing I will say though, like, because I don't want to spend too much time simply talking about the darkness, because I know we've pretty much talked about the darkness this whole time. One thing I will say about like Witchblade, what's his name? You guys were talking about simps, right? And
Yeah.
maybe Jay will remember this. You remember that guy Jake?
He was the blonde guy, right?
Yeah, he's the blonde guy. Her replacement partner. That dude's a simp. That dude's a fucking simp.
Yeah, but I still feel kind of bad for him because of what happens to him later. But so I give him a bit of a pass.
Yeah, like, so basically, like the story starts off. She has another partner. What's his name? I can't think of his name.
Doesn't matter. He doesn't live that long, anyways.
Yeah,
Are you talking about Michael?
Was it Michael?
Yeah, that's Michael Yee.
Yeah, Michael Yee. Yeah, so he's her first partner, and he pretty much dies issue 1, so he doesn't really matter. And then like she gets a replacement partner named Jake, and this dude is like, from the get-go, he's straight up like, oh man, she's hot, but she's my partner, so I gotta play it cool, right? I gotta be cool with it. And like the hoops this man jumps through for Sarah. And again, I'm not saying she has to reciprocate these feelings.
No,
She
I
is
mean,
under
you're not
no
obligated to
obligation to do that. However, there is a subplot in the sense that she's got the Witchblade, she's fighting all these supernatural things, she's still a cop, and like she doesn't, and like she's slowly learning what's happening. However, she refuses to tell anybody else what's going on, despite the fact that they are now getting their lives caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dude Jake, he literally gets caught in the fight between her and like this dude who's trying to control the Witchblade for himself. Like he's literally, he saw him get the power. He saw him blasting laser bolts from his hands. He saw her awaken the Witchblade, do all these crazy things. And he's still helping her out, supporting her. And he's like, all right, Sarah, you got to tell me what's going on. And she keeps going like, I'll tell you later. And
but she never tells him.
She eventually tells him, but it's so much later. It's like, by the time she's like, every time she keeps putting off telling him what's going on, something else crazy happens. And again, he's there to help her out. And it's like, all right, man, come on. You need to start getting some backbone here. Like, I need answers. Like, forget the relationship, forget feelings. Just tell me, what the hell is this thing? What's going on here? And she refuses to tell him, and he just keeps going along with that. I'm like, come on, dude.
I would have put my foot down. I'd be like, you freaking tell me what the fuck is going on.
Dude, at one point he gets at one point he gets like blasted by the Witchblade. Like it accidentally, like she accidentally loses control of it. It blasts the hell out of him. And like later on, he's like getting pissed off at her, like I keep asking you for answers and you keep putting it off. And then like he's kind of giving her the cold shoulder, and her in a monologue, she's like talking about how much of a dick move that is. I'm like, all right, Sarah, I love you. You're awesome. But no,
Yeah.
No.
Girl.
No.
I don't know. Remember the first comic, the first time you see her in her miniskirt? That would probably make a lot of guys simp.
I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. She's how do I say this respectfully?
She's hot.
She's hot.
She's 100 when the scale is at 10.
Right. But at some point, man, you gotta just sit there and be like, all right, enough's enough. I've been attacked by this living glove. I've been blasted by lasers. I got attacked by a resurrected Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tell me what the hell is happening.
There's a girl, you better tell me what the fuck is going on. Quit playing.
Like, and again, it's one of, and I think that's one of the problems when it comes to Witchblade in like those early runs is that I get it's trying to tell a mystery with the Witchblade, and the mystery at its core is interesting, but it takes so long. Like, it takes so long to get some of the payoff to these like mysteries, and
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
I feel like it adds more mystery before it gives payoff to some to mysteries, so it doesn't really help it too much.
Yeah, like the part in I think it was where she rescues Lisa. There's this one girl that she's sort of taking care of. I'm not exactly sure their relationship, but I do know that there's this one 16-year-old girl that she basically saved in this house, and she thought that she found the guy the woman that killed her father, and he's like, I didn't kill your father. I'm just like, oh, son of a, well, who did then? Goodbye. Yeah. And then like, oh, come on.
Okay, I don't mind a story having like a mystery in the mystery. It's like every time you get an answer, it kind of raises more questions to kind of keep you paying attention. I don't mind that. Like some of my favorite anime does that, and I like it because it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep reading this because I want to know what the hell is going on. But then it gets to a point where it's like you're not gonna answer anything, are you? And that gets annoying.
Yeah, because like so like again, I hate that we're doing this because I feel like we're talking more negative about Witchblade than we were with Darkness. But again, I want to maintain this understanding. I do love Witchblade. Like, don't get me wrong, I still love it. But I just want to say it's like yeah, like in the first issue, there's like a she's investigating this one like crime. Well, she's investigating two crimes. Let me rephrase that. The first one is like this secret like fight or tournament going on in like this movie theater. It's supposedly abandoned movie theater.
Mortal Kombat?
Sort of.
Yeah.
The second is these murders that have been happening for like years. And like at first you think they're connected, but the way the story presents it, it doesn't really present them as being connected. Not really. However, as the story goes on, you realize they are connected, and it just didn't do a good job as portraying them as being connected. But then when you get the answers to it, you realize, oh, you're not really connected other than like, what's the best way to describe it? Like, basically, like the main villain of the fighting tournament thing and the whole like catalyst of the Witchblade is the ex-husband of like the person behind the whole like murders and that subplot. Like, that's the connection. That's the connection to it. It's not really anything else to it.
Wow.
And it's like it feels like they should have introduced the murders like separately, like not even in the same arc. Or at the very least kind of like have like a tiny little backdrop of it and then like kind of let it fester and then explored it later in the second arc.
Actually, curious, Sauron, how far in the comic did you get?
So I gotta double check what issue I stopped on because I had to because I didn't get to, I tried to read as far as I could, but I still had to read like Darkness. I still watched some of the show. I got to like, what issue was that? I think I was like issue like 20 something in. I think I was like I think I tried my best to at least stop somewhere around the same time for each book. I'm pretty sure I stopped like somewhere past issue 20 for each one, like Darkness, Witchblade, and
Mhm.
then I played the games, watched the anime. So yeah, I think it's issue 20.
Okay. Well, the reason why I'm asking is kind of going back to something I was talking about before is there was a point in the comics where they started to kind of nerf her design, where it basically was less what most people know her for and actually started to put her in full body armor. I mean, granted, it was, again, skin tight, but it's still disappointing considering what we had in the first issue and then eventually what we get. And it's kind of interesting, too, because I actually thought it was oh man, I cannot pronounce the dude's name. It's something. It looks like something like Stephen Kijik or something like that. He did.
Oh
He did
yeah.
Sunstone, and I always thought that it was him that was the person who started this. Well, I'm just gonna say it started this bullshit, but it was actually some other dude whose name was Michael Chow or something like that. And one thing I've always wondered was it because Michael Chow wanted to do it this way, or was he ordered to do it this way, or what was the deal?
Let me see
I
if I
don't know
can
if you happen
find.
to know.
Let me see if I can find who started writing that era of Witchblade, because I know Sepik, however you say his name. I apologize for butchering it, but
Well, it starts. Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to see.
It starts, as I said before, it starts in issue 80. The artist again was Mike Cho, as in
Oh,
C
okay,
H
okay.
O I,
So
and written by Ron Mars.
yeah, I'm about to say so issue 80. So yeah, I remember I was reading into this and a lot of people. This is something. It kind of annoys me when people do this, but basically there was a lot of people like saying that like if you're gonna read Witchblade, skip to issue 80
Oh,
because
fuck
and
me.
they're like oh because like the first few issues are so rough. And first of all, it's gonna be a little personal. But I don't like Ron Mars. Like the guy kind of pisses me off in a couple of things. But putting that personal bias aside, I hate it when people kind of do that when they're like, "Oh, just skip all these other issues." Especially
Yeah,
like
I
unless it's
remember.
like
Yeah, I
There's a certain YouTuber who did that with JoJo. I was like, "Oh, skip these parts." Like, don't do that.
mhm,
no, don't. Yeah, don't do that at all.
like
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of was the opposite. Yeah, read until 79, then just stop.
because the way I see it, it's like unless your comic has like if it's like Amazing Spider-Man where you got like 800 issues, don't start at issue 1. Like unless you really want to. Unless you really want to start at issue 1. However, when it comes to something like that where it's like 80 issues, yeah, that's a lot, but again, there's far worse out there. And again, I think there's a certain charm to those early issues of Witchblade, and they do essentially set the stage for like a lot of the story being told. And I don't think it's fair to simply just be like, oh, just jump to issue 80 when by this point in time the creative team is literally nobody who created the IP.
Which is probably the reason why some people say, "Oh, skip to that." Well, no wonder issue 80 was free because everyone said, "Well, start, fuck you, go, please kindly go fuck yourself." Sorry, this angers
Is
me.
issue 80 where they nerfed their design?
Yep. Well, at the very least, the events start where it starts that way, and it seems like they never go back because again, Stephen, I cannot pronounce his name. I'm sorry, man, if you're listening to this. Stephen Kijik did some of the best art for this. I'd say in his own way, equal to Michael Turner. In his own way, it wasn't quite as didn't have the same elements to it, but it was really well done. But he still kept that design, and it's one of those things. Again, I thought it was him that started it, but again, it was ended up being Mike Cho and possibly Ron Mars. And it's just kind of disappointing because again, when people think of Witchblade, they don't think of her ultimate armor type. They think about the one with all by Michael Turner.
Yeah, and you can even tell that that's like the main one most people because I've seen again I apologize for messing up your name Sep how did I don't
You know who
remember
you're
his name.
talking about.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about, but like I've seen him do like more traditional Witchblade artwork, like the more traditional design of Witchblade, and it looks good. Like he's not like one of my favorite artists. I'm not too crazy about his art style. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just not. It's not my particular taste. However, he's done like more traditional Witchblade designs, and it looks good. So for me, it's like that era, or at least when he was drawing the more full-bodied armor. That to me, that's very clearly like this is what he was told to draw, and he drew it that way.
I think one thing I'd love to see is him definitely draw that way for an entire run or something like that. But
I know he does some full runs of comics, but I don't think he does like. Well, let me rephrase that. I know he does like certain full runs.
He
I don't
does.
know if
He
he
did
does it
Sunstone.
traditionally. Like, I think it's like very specific runs, honestly.
That's a shame. Well, I know he did like a run in 2008, but it would have been nice to see someone go back to basics. But I kept on trying to pop in every so often. But the moment that she got the Nerf design, I lost all interest.
I remember, because like with Darkness, there was a big art style change with the Cursed Volume 2, and I ended up really not liking it. Where it just, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it was just, if you look up like an image from Accursed Volume 1 and then compare it to like Volume 2, you can tell it was a different artist, and it's like the other artist's style to me doesn't work as well. And it was just like, damn, that sucks. They didn't keep the same person, or at least the same style for it.
Yeah, because I remember, it's one thing because it's like, I think, again, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of anybody, but I think Top Cow has kind of like learned that, especially considering like how they've been going for these like reprints and collections of the original Darkness and Witchblade runs. They did like 2 statues through XM Studios, and they're very much like the traditional Witchblade and Darkness designs. And so it seems like at the very least they understand that like when people think of the Darkness and Witchblade, this is the version that they prefer. Um, with the exception of Witchblade, you do have like the fans of the anime. I have met some people who like they didn't even know Witchblade was an American property. They just thought it was an anime. So
Damn.
I thought that was pretty interesting. But again, it's like to me that tells you, and this is one thing I always say about a lot of '90s properties, is that like say what you will about them in terms of how their stories are being told. I think a lot of them have really strong like premise. Like they all have a lot of them have a really strong premise, and that alone can sometimes be enough to kind of keep these properties going. Because like when you get to like the core of it, like think of like, oh, homicide detective in New York City accidentally gets attached to like this ancient alien weapon and now is fighting the supernatural. Like that's cool. Like that's a cool premise that you can do a lot with. Um, an Italian mobster assassin inherits literally the darkness of the entire universe. Like it's pretty basic, but at the same time you can do a lot with that. And so I feel like when it comes to like Witchblade and the Darkness, that's kind of what it is. Like although the stories themselves, they kind of like vary in terms of quality. I think like their premise alone, and I don't want to get too like, I don't know if this is pretentious, but I would say I think their premises alone are pretty timeless in the sense that like you can do a lot with those regardless of what era you're in.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
Indeed. Yeah,
Man, it lasted this
especially
long,
when
right?
you go back and
I mean, look at Spawn for example. Like Spawn is probably like when it comes to like original '90s IPs, I think his is probably like the most popular. At least off the top of my head, I'll say that. I don't know about every '90s property, and he's one that's been around since the '90s. Like, sure, it's been kind of off and on in some areas, but for the most part, he's kind of always been somewhere in. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who didn't like Spawn, and even if it was like the general concept or the character itself. And I feel like the same way with the darkness. There's occasional moments where like I'll talk to people and we'll mention the darkness, and it's just like, oh yeah, I remember that, man. I remember like reading the comics, playing the games, and like same thing with Witchblade, where it's like even if it is the anime that they're referring to, it's still Witchblade. Like it's still got that same like core to it, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I did want to talk about though, since we kind of talked plenty length about the two main properties, is the goddamn crossovers. Like,
I honestly didn't know they would have many crossovers until I started looking at this.
I
Oh,
knew they
yeah.
had some.
There were plenty.
Yeah, I knew they had some. I read a few of them even before this whole stream. But Jesus Christ, man, like going down that rabbit hole. Because the one I read, the main one I read was Superman and the Darkness. And because I love Superman, I don't care what anybody says, I love Superman. So when I saw they had a Darkness crossover, I had to read it, and then I discovered Batman, the Darkness crossover. There's JLA and Witchblade crossover. There's I know we mentioned earlier Tomb Raider, Witchblade, and Tomb Raider, the Darkness. Let me see some other ones that I had pulled up. Holy shit, man! Like it's insane. Vampirella, Red Sonja.
The Red Sonja was actually good. That one you could actually buy, surprisingly.
Let me see if I can pull up. I don't know. Have you guys read any of the crossovers?
I have not.
Oh, I have.
Let me see if I can.
I don't think the omnibus contained any of the crossovers.
No, most omnibuses aren't gonna, because of like I think it has something to do with like
licenses.
Probably
and stuff. Like they're not even allowed to reprint some of that stuff, or they gotta get like special permission.
Hmm.
See if I can find some of these other ones.
That Witchblade statue, that's pretty nice.
I have it. I
wonder how much that goes for now.
I wish we could actually. I wish we could go back on that. Because I'd like to pose a challenge. Okay, you remember that Witchblade statue? Do you think it would make as much money if it was fully armored?
No.
No. I don't remember where it was. There it is.
Yeah, like
probably not.
Yeah, imagine everything that you see in skin, but it all has like this yellowish, like honeycomb, like armor to it. So you can see no skin anymore, except for her head.
I remember. So what ended up happening was like, when it comes to this statue, is that like what was it? I think I saw it like back when I used to live in Washington State for a while, and like I bought some statues, but that's when I kind of got really into it, because I finally had like the means and the space for them, and so I was looking into them, and I saw this Witchblade statue, and I was like, holy shit, I would love to buy that, but I think it was like for pre-order, and at the time I was like, I don't know if I want to drop this much money for it. And then later, after I moved out of Washington, I went to eBay one day, and I was just bullshitting around looking through eBay and stuff, and I saw it, and I was like, holy shit, oh man, I want it so fucking bad. I looked it up, I saw the price, and at first I was like, oh man, that's a little too much for my taste. And then I think I remember I was talking to a friend of mine where he was telling me, like, if you're gonna buy statues, like, one of the things you're always gonna want to do is always look for like other options. Don't just buy the first one you see, and always try to look up the original price of the statue as well, because you want to at least try to spend, like, realistic, like idyllic, you want to spend as much as what the price originally went for, and that way, if nothing else, you can kind of like gauge how much you should be spending for it. And then when I was doing my research, I found the statue, and it was pretty much the exact same price as its debut. Like, I think it was like maybe a couple of $10 higher. And so I think at some point I was like, oh man, that's a lot of money. But then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get it. And like I didn't stop buying. So let me rephrase that. I saved money. I didn't buy certain things, and I eventually just bought it. And holy shit, man! Like it is exactly as amazing as it looks. Like I do not regret the purchase at all.
Cool.
That's
However,
good.
though, there's a darkness statue out there as well, and he's even more expensive than she was.
Damn.
Because like
That's a shame.
I won't go into how much I spent, but like while she was in like the triple digits, he was in like quadruple digits.
Oh,
Oh,
fuck.
Hmm.
Damn, we said it at the same time.
There's a Virgil statue from Devil May Cry 5. I was like, oh, this looks awesome. How much is like this thing is worth more than my gaming PC? At least when I initially made it. It's like you can put down payments on this shit. I started laughing like you can put down payments on this thing. Wow.
Yeah, it's like, but the fact that this statue even exists to me says that like there is a fan base out there, and even from doing the stream, making the couple of posts about it, reading more into it, it's very clear that there is a fan base for these properties, and it's very clear that Top Cow recognizes that. And even if it's not as actually, no, I take that back. I would say it's bigger than what you might have thought of those fan bases were. Because I've met a lot of people just like they even they'll just say like, "Oh yeah, I remember that, man. I remember how awesome it was."
Yeah. Like I said, I think everyone here pretty much said their first exposure was the game. The one thing I'm gonna say about the game that I really like is whoever did the voice for the darkness in the game. Like that's the voice I hear every time I read. Anytime the darkness speaks.
Let me see if I can.
I forget
find
his
who
name.
did
The guy who did the voice for that. Because it's weird because he did the voice for the second one. I did not like how the direction they gave him in the second one because he came off as like less threatening. It was just too over the top.
Yeah, in the game, second game
Mike
is a bit
Patton.
more comedic.
Yeah, Mike Patton. Yeah, he did a good job with in the first game. Like he was legit scary sounding.
Yeah, he's like a metal artist. I know he has like a band, and
because he kind of sounds like he's doing like a metal-ish voice, like the whispery metal voice kind of thing. At points,
Mike Patton.
Like they nailed that. I was like, "Yo, that was creepy as shit." Like even in the trailers, I was like, "Dude, that is creepy."
One of the things, and I really, man, I remember this very specifically.
Oh, that's
the Angelus in the Darkness.
Yeah, that's
2.
Jenny as the Angelus, right?
Which, oh my god, that was a twist. Especially,
I mean, I kind of thought it was they were gonna go there.
Yeah,
okay, now she's kind of giving me Doomslayer vibes with the arm blade.
Well, the arm blade comes from the anime. I don't think it came from the comic. I think it came from the anime, and then they adopted it in the comic.
Oh, you know what was probably the best, like my favorite issue of the Darkness, and I think it's one that a lot of people liked, and I can't remember which number it is, but it's one where Jackie goes to kill this like fortune teller dude, and he asks him to actually like predict his future, and the guy legit is able to do that and tells him of in the future Jackie takes over the entire world, like the Darkness is like a copy of the entire world, and he rules all of it, but in the end, some kid is able to get the spear of I think it's Magdalene or something like that, and uses it to free the Angelus. But the Angelus is so batshit at that point that it just ends up just nuking the entire world. It's implied everybody dies.
So in other words, the Devilman Crybaby ending,
basically. But Jackie's so ridiculous. There's a point where a guy betrays him, and the guy just starts choking in front of Jackie, and he goes, "Yeah, the darkness is in the air you breathe too." He's like, I control everything, dude. Basically, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yeah, I remember because I do know there's some like stories where like I don't want to say they break continuity. No, let me phrase that. They kind of exist outside the main story. Like they're very much like, oh, these are past hosts of the Darkness. And there's one story, and I remember being so like confused but it's a story that takes place in like the far future, like spaceships kind of shit. And basically, you have this host of the darkness. I can't remember his name, but he is an estacado. And basically, he's like this like world conqueror. Like he travels in a giant ship, pretty much made from the darkness. His entire army and crew are pretty much like either darkness creations or like somehow imbued with the darkness to a degree. But basically, he's just like this giant space pirate. And I just remember thinking like, this is insane, but I love
That
it at
is
the same
insane.
time. But one thing that's really funny and kind of fucked up too is that like, and I think it was trying to emphasize the fact that like when you're the host of the darkness, you don't really control it. You kind of just use it until it decides that it's done with you. And
Yeah, it's
so
kind of like okay, it's been fun. We're gonna
and
switch hosts now.
so basically, like as the comic goes on, one of his darkness creations turns out was like plotting against him, and is like basically like it was acting on the will of the darkness, not the host. And so he ends up stopping it, and I can't remember exactly what happened because it's been a while, but like he it's kind of alluded to how old he is. Like it's kind of emphasized that he was on Earth back when like Earth before space travel and stuff like that. So you kind of get the sense of like, oh, this guy's been around for a while. And so he steps foot on this planet with this woman, and they're like having a heart to heart moment, and he's saying like, this is like the first time I've seen sunlight in like thousands of years. And he immediately starts dying, like fading to dust. And basically what happened was like he had lived for so long that like he lived way past his like normal lifespan, and it was literally only the darkness keeping him alive at that
Right,
point.
because the
So,
darkness can't exist in the light. He just
yeah, like the minute he stepped in sunlight, it was like that was it. And he knew it too, like that he wanted to die, like he was ready to die. And I was just thinking, like, man, that is like a brutal life to live, like knowing that like at some point in time, like you just can't touch sunlight ever again.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that's called being a vampire, but
Well, I guess that's one of the reasons why the darkness usually is not going to go in for maybe a normal person. That's probably the reason why Jackie was chosen in the first place, because when the worst of it happens, Jackie probably will be fine, and while anyone else who's used to sunlight is going to be like, oh, this is a personal kind of hell.
oh no, the funniest thing is in the Accursed comic, because what happens with that is Jackie takes over a South American country by making a drug from the darkness. Like he partnered up with the scientist guy who we met like in I think a very like, earlier in the series, who's been studying the darkness and helping him learn how to control it. And because Jackie can't obviously knock up a chick, so what he does is he basically makes a wife out of the darkness for himself. And what he doesn't know is the scientist has been secretly working with her. And, he obviously when he designed it, oh, yeah, she can't get pregnant. That turns out to not be true anymore.
Whoops.
And later on in the story, he's like, oh, she's pregnant. And not only that, the darkness just turns on him immediately. Like all of his darklings just turn on him like, we're going to kill you now. It's like, we don't listen to you anymore, Jackie.
Oh my God.
And then Jackie ends up losing his powers. But then the darkness basically tells him the reason we picked your family is because eventually one of you was going to be horny enough to make a blow up doll out of the darkness so that we could actually have a body made from the darkness that we can inhabit. Dumb.
Yeah, like in the
but
comics,
then he's able to get the darkness back after getting blown in half by a suicide vest, which is kind of
like
bullshit.
The darkness is
because,
in the
course.
comics. It's like, and again, this is one of the reasons why like the second Darkness game, it's not. Its biggest problem is that like it conflicts with the first game, but technically speaking, that is how the Darkness and Jackie are in the comics. Like the Darkness straight up bullies him. Like it flat out bullies the shit out of him. Like it will make fun of the fact that he can't get laid.
The Darkness is an asshole.
Yeah, like the scene when Jenny dies. Like this is in the first game, but it still applies. Like when Jenny dies in the first game, spoiler alert, and he's like looking over her body, holding her, and the Darkness son of a bitch is like, what happened to Jenny?
Yeah, it's like, what happened to Jenny? And Jackie's just looking like Jackie. Like, I know it's first words, but Jackie, I can imagine he's just looking at this like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
He's like, you motherfucker.
And then one thing I always loved in the comics is the Darklings. So in the games they kind of handle it, it's a game mechanic. But in the comics, there are these little entities that follow him at all times. And
Oh, what the fuck is that dragon thing Superman's fighting?
Oh, that's something he made with the darkness.
Oh, that's pretty badass.
Well, because again, in the comics, the darkness it's almost like a Green Lantern ring, where the limitation is your imagination for some of the stuff it can create. And so, that's one of the things he creates.
Although he's not too good at making women.
No.
Yeah.
Though
well, because
it's funny because it occurs when he's fighting because the child of that's born from the darkness actually becomes a thing that he fights, and it tries to kill him with a tentacle, and he just turns it into water before it touches him. And the darkness is legit surprised, like, how the fuck did you do that? He goes, oh yeah, I learned how to change the molecular structure of the darkness a long time ago. And the darkness starts trying to mock him about it. It's like, what you gonna do? Keep turning my attacks into water? And Jackie's like, who said the only thing I can make it is water? And then he makes it explode.
Yeah,
he just makes it explode on him. And I was like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, because it's like the reason why he's able to create monsters better is because the more knowledge you have on something, the better the easier it is to create. Like if he had more detailed idea of how human anatomy works, he can make a human instantly. But because he's creating monsters where the anatomy doesn't really matter, they just come out however they want.
Yeah.
And so the Darklings, I fucking love them because it's they're just these little bastards who they pretty much worship Jackie. They're hanging around him. They're in his car all the time. They're egging him on. They're cheering him on. But at the same time, he absolutely hates them.
Yeah, he's like, you guys are annoying.
Yeah, they won't leave him alone. And I think in the second game, where,
there's only one Darkling in the second one.
Yeah, but one thing that's really funny, I think it might have been the strategy guide or somewhere I read where it's explaining why he's British of all things is because Jackie hates British people. And so that personality
That's
to
funny.
annoy him. And I always thought God damn, but it makes sense because he's Italian. He's an old school Italian mobster, so he's not gonna have too many pleasant opinions on other people.
That's just funny. It's like, you hate the Brits, so I became a Brit just to spite you. Oh god, now I'm just imagining the darkness taunting Jackie in a British accent. But still sounding creepy with it.
But that's the thing, is that the darkness is just and this is one thing I really like about the comics and the darkness in general, the property itself, is that the darkness is essentially the ultimate evil in the universe. But he's also a dick. He's just an asshole. And
yeah, Jackie is a straight up asshole.
And I think that's one of the reasons why Jackie is in the comics he's kind of presented as being, I don't want to say he's the perfect host, but he's obviously he's the main character, so he's the host, he's the best host so far. And I think one of the things I always say is because they're both assholes. They both play off each other's asshole attitudes. The other hosts, they kind of give into the darkness and just kind of live it up like kings, but they're not really
they're not in it.
Yeah, they're not the same snarky asshole as the darkness is.
But yeah, the darkness is oh, you we're on the same wavelength, even though we fucking hate each other. It's we're on the same wavelength, though.
And then the whole thing with the Angelus, it's so the thing about again, it's the polar opposite of the darkness. However, the way it handles its hosts is very different. For example, while the darkness kind of lets the host have a little bit of fun with the power, the Angelus pretty much takes over you.
Yeah, you do what the Angelus wants you to do. You don't really have a choice in it.
Yeah, you don't really get to explore the powers. Not to it adopts some of your personality into it, but for the most part, you don't get the freedom that the darkness hosts will get. And I remember in one of the comics, Jackie's I guess you could say adoptive sister. She hates him so much that she's willing to become the host of the Angelus to get back at him. and she's talking about all this stuff she's gonna do with the Angelus, and I'm just sitting here knowing the lore is like, yeah,
It's a
that ain't fucking
girl.
happening.
That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work the way you think it is.
No, it is not.
And then like it doesn't even choose her; it like chooses like her brain dead mother.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's gonna make you feel
I remember that.
Which is
Yeah.
weird because again, she was living in an orphanage for a while.
Well, I think it's because, like, again, the Angelus prefers a host that it can completely control, and who better can control than someone who literally was pretty much brain dead.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
like
much.
when that's like reminding me of X-Men 3 when at the post credit scene it's like, oh, Charles projected his mind into the guy who can't move and his brain dead.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's some ethical concerns because it's like, dude, I know he's brain dead, but it's like that was still somebody in there.
Yeah, like he was
Like you
still
could have
alive.
just erased the dude that was in there.
Well, to be fair, the movie afterwards was Days of Future Past, so it wasn't a complete loss.
They just
So
ignored
I have
that
to
part.
ask though, like, so was that actually like Charles's original body? Is he just projecting how he looked to everyone, in their mind, so that's how they see him?
I believe he projected.
Because
Yeah,
I'm
I think
assuming
he-
that's what happened, but they never actually confirmed that.
Yeah, I remember. What do you call it? Like, and I think that was one of the things when it comes to like the Angelus in like the game. Like, that's one thing that really confused me. It was like, was Jenny the host of the Angelus the whole time, or did it choose Jenny right before the darkness like trapped her soul? So that was something that always kind of bothered me in the game.
Yeah,
at the
I
same-
kind of thought it was like as she was dying, the Andress picked her, and then the Darkness like, oh shit, we can't have that.
Yeah, I know there's like some things that say like the reason why the darkness let Jenny die was to get rid of the Angelus, but I said that doesn't make any sense because the darkness would kill her regardless because it's the thing that made Jackie human.
Yeah, and also not to mention if she was the Angelus the whole time, you think she'd want to kill him the minute he's around her and he has the darkness. You think she'd be like, oh,
Or at
oh,
least
that's a deal breaker.
or at least activate before what's his name, Paulie kills her.
Yeah, like if it was like a sleeper agent thing, you think the Angelus would have been like, yeah, you're not killing my host. It's like, yeah, no.
I mean, what I got from the post-credit scene of The Darkness 2 is Jenny somehow made a deal with the Angelus, and she allows herself to be her host.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, I have seen that as well, where it's like it's believed that Jenny made a deal with the Angelus to spare Jackie, and like that's the reason why she leaves him trapped in hell as opposed to killing him.
It's a compromise.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see Jenny doing that, but it's not really conveyed that well.
I'm pretty sure we would have saw that in the third game if they ever made one.
Yeah, if they ever did get a third one, that's what probably would have happened.
Man, I wish we had a third game because that
Yeah, same here.
even with the tonal shift of 1 and 2, it was still fun. There was still something there to have in terms of storytelling.
I
And,
just wish they had more supernatural enemies in especially the second one.
well, yeah, because like okay, so this is where I'm okay. So I'm a little biased on this. I love stories where there is a supernatural element, and and it's being fought by normal people. But one of the things I love the most is not necessarily when that supernatural entity is overpowered, is when the normal entities, the normal people, slowly start realizing how to counteract it. And one of my favorite moments I would say in Darkness history, it's in the game, is like there's a moment where you're fighting like this corrupt police chief.
Oh yeah, I remember
And
that.
they have you like tied up and they have a spotlight on you because they're like, all right, he clearly, we don't know what he has, but whatever it does, it works in the dark. So we're gonna tie him and put the spotlight on him where he can't really use it. And then at some point, there's like a gunfight, and they're like, he's slaughtering us, and they're literally just like, turn on the fucking floodlights.
That's like before that, the guy yells, turn on the fucking
Yeah.
lights. You can't do
And-
that shit. The light.
I remember playing that for the first time, and again, this is me as a kid, so like again, like I didn't understand game mechanics and stuff like that, but that threw me off as a kid because I was like, I'm just murdering these guys with darkness powers. They're turning on those lights. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and then like they throw flash grenades at you, which is how they end up catching you.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like how you end up just baiting the idiot officers into walking in front of the light enough times.
Yeah, because in the comics and in the first game, like the darkness. So in the comics, the darkness only doesn't work in sunlight. Any other kind of light doesn't really do anything to it. In the game, however, sunlight it doesn't work at all. But also like artificial light, it just weakens it. It's just not as powerful. And the second game, and I hate this, any light just stops the darkness.
Yeah, I
And I'm
didn't like that either.
That's such bullshit because like I get mechanically they were trying to like give the enemies more ways to like throw you off of fighting, and I do kind of appreciate that because it does lead to some really cool moments where you have no choice but to like gun them down. And again, I think like in the comics and in like most darkness lore, Jackie's supposed to be like a goddamn good shot. Like it's like kind of ridiculous how good he is when it comes to like guns and shit.
I just remember some of his execution moves he pulled in the first game. Where he like shoots a guy in the leg with the pistol and shoots him in the head with the other pistol while the guy's limping, the guy's reeling and stuff. Like that was kind of brutal.
I remember one where like, especially in the second game, because they went hard on some of those.
Yeah, they did.
executions Where it's like he'll like grab them with one of the darkness tendrils, and the other one just goes through their ass and out their fucking mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh god, just kill him.
Yes, they just killed him.
Oh yeah, didn't he rip out his entire skeleton when he did that?
There's one where he can do that. Well, no, I think that's more of a like. I think that's one of like the cutscene kind of kills. But I do know that is something he has done in the comics, where he like sticks his hand in somebody and just pulls out their entire skeleton and leaves the rest of them behind.
I don't remember what the. Oh yeah, the person in question that I'm talking about, I think tried to kill his uncle when they, I guess, were on good terms, and he beheaded one guy, but the second guy he decided to be a little bit more vindictive. So that's when he parts of the darkness went up the dude's nose, and he literally tore his skeleton out and the skin just kind of went out the side. It was disturbing, but it was a hell of a shot, a hell of a move. It was a baller move.
I just remember how you upgrade the darkness in the first game. It's like, oh yeah, you eat people's hearts out. You feed your little eel heads people's hearts.
Yeah, I remember. What was it? In one of the comics, like there's a moment where like Jackie, he meets this like interrogator from the mob who's like this. He looks like Pee Wee Herman. He's absolutely insane, and he's known for like being able to get information on anybody because his torture methods are that exact. And so when Jackie finally has this guy, and he's trying to think of how to kill him. And he kind of realizes, like, this guy's a master torturer and he's already insane. So I got to think of like a really good way to kill him. So he feeds him to like the darklings and like other little dark entities, and they're like slowly eating him bit by bit. And the guy's laying there, like, and again, the guy's absolutely insane. He's like, "Wow, you know what? This is actually a pretty creative way. I commend you, sir." And
that's funny.
He's sitting there just complimenting. It was like, this is actually a pretty creative way to kill somebody. Congratulations!
Great technique, great form. Look, it looks like an 8 out of 10.
I commend your efforts, sir. Speaking of the darkness, though, there's a certain character who I did not realize was even in. Like, I didn't know this character existed. I know he was kind of adopted in certain ways in the game, but oh my god, what's his name? Let me see if I can pull him up real quick.
It's not the old. You're not talking about the old man who wants to steal the darkness from you, right?
No. So I think in the comics, in the comic version is like he's based off the comic version. Sontaine. He's the leader.
That's Sontaine.
Yeah, he's the leader of the Brotherhood of Darkness, the main cult that worships the darkness. However, he's also like an antagonist to Jackie for like a good while. And one of the things that's so funny about him is that like he's just a pure like asshole. You know how like some villains in stories like they're just bastards? He's definitely one of those.
Yeah.
I know one thing that he does is like so he has like access to like some magic from the darkness. And he's like, in comparison to the darkness, it's nothing, but to regular people, it's quite effective. And one of the things he does is that instead of killing somebody, he'll like he'll flash this medallion in front of them, and basically, it's almost like the nebulizer from Men in Black, where he flashes it in front of you, and whatever he says, like that's your new memory, and so that's how he incapacitates a lot of people. Like he was like trying to walk into like a bar looking for Jackie, and the bouncer was like, "You can't come in here." He flashes the medallion, and it's like, "Your mother was a whore, and you just now found out."
Oh, that is fucked up.
Oh, I remember. He's like, "Your mother was a whore, your father was her pimp, and you just found out now. Remember this." And the guy just immediately is like, "No, no!" It's so fucking funny.
That just reminds me of that. Kind of reminds me of Code Geass, where he uses the power. It's like if he makes eye contact with you, whatever he says, you have to do that command, but he can only do it once. It sounds like something Lelouch would do.
Yeah, because he does that a couple of times in the comic, and it's so funny because it's just like he'll just say stuff that's gonna cripple people. And one of them, and this is probably the darkest one he did, at least so far that I've seen, where like he breaks into this dude's house. It's like a mafia member, and he's like, "How the hell did you get in here? Where are my men? Oh, they're fine. I just I I convinced them that they all raped their mothers when they were young." And it shows like the guys outside committing the suicide. Like, "I'm sorry, mama."
I
No, like,
mean, I feel like
Jesus
you would have to
Christ.
just commit the seppuku on that one.
What was one that he said that really killed me? And I actually stopped reading for a second. Some cop was trying to stop him, or somebody was trying to stop him, and it was like such a quick moment where he was trying to hurry up and get somewhere. He's like, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" He's like, "You fight crime in women's lingerie, and your kids just found out." And that's
By the way, does this wear off? Like his memory,
no,
it never wears off.
It's never presented as something that wears off.
Because I could see if it was like if you stay with it, only was a thing if you were in a certain radius of them. Like after a while, you would just be like, "Wait, what the fuck?" Like your memories would come back or something.
It's never presented as such, so I don't know. Maybe it is, but it's so funny. And again, that's one of the things I talk about, like with the darkness early on over at Witchblade, is that like, darkness has a lot of moments like that where it's just like, this is so dumb, but it kind of keeps you like going because of how dumb it is. Like when he says stuff like that, for a second, like I read it, and then I have to stop and read it again to make sure I read that correctly.
Yeah, you're like, "Wait, what? What did you just say, bro?"
you fight crime at night in women's lingerie, and your kids just found out.
It's like, "You want to run that by me again, dude?"
Hold up, wait a minute.
We're like, hold up.
Oh crap. Give me. You guys keep talking. Give me 1 second. I gotta take care of something.
All right, man.
Actually, another aspect about the darkness that isn't talked about all that much is Jackie is a reconstruction of the '90s anti-hero. Whereas most of the '90s anti-heroes are like loud, bombastic, and shallow. So whereas Jackie, on the other hand, he's complex, subtle, and intelligent. And yes, he is a hitman for the mob, so he has no moral quandary on that. But he goes out to make sure that he doesn't kill innocent people. Because that's part of his moral code.
Yeah, he doesn't do that.
Yeah. He might be an asshole, but he's an asshole with a code.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm not that much of an asshole."
Yeah, and it's also lawful neutral because again he's sticking to the old school codes of New York mob crime families. and he does generally care about those who work for him.
Yeah. He's one of those characters like he's ruthless when he absolutely needs to be.
Yeah, so
Like,
while
if you're a normal person and you're not messing with him, he's gonna leave you alone.
yes, yeah, so which yeah, he's an a-hole, but he's not a complete a-hole.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, that's
which,
fair.
yeah, which is actually why I liked how Jackie's characterization it was consistent when they adapted the series into the video games, but also added something into his characterization where he's more sympathetic whereas in the comics, well, yes, he's still an a-hole, but he did but that like I said that hidden heart of gold, or at least like his goal wasn't explored all that much in the first few issues of Darkness until later.
You know what's one thing the game did that I thought it was weird at first, but I actually started to like it? When like instead of just having a loading screen, it would be Jackie talking about something. Like it was never clear who he was talking to. Really, at point. Sometimes it was clear he was talking to Jenny or something, and other times it's like I don't know who the hell you're talking about. Talking to. It's just
I
kind
actually
of
like
talking.
that.
At first I thought it was weird, but then I was like, later on in the game, I was like, I kind of like that. It's a cool way to give him more character when you can't really do anything because the game's loading.
Yeah, so I did my toes on the Darkness and Witchblade through the crossovers such as Batman the Darkness, Superman the Darkness, Justice League, and Witchblade, and also this other crossover that I read fairly recently, but I've known of it for quite a while, called Devil's Reign, where it's a crossover between Marvel and Top Cow, involving Mephisto escaping from the Marvel universe and going into the Top Cow universe in order to claim souls and try to take over the world with those souls that he claimed from the Top Cow universe.
Huh. I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, because
And
like,
again, my knowledge of the crossovers was pretty limited.
yeah, I feel like because one thing I always say is like I'm not a big fan of like alternate universe stories too much. But crossovers are probably the exception I make to those because usually when it comes to crossovers, like there's no real way to tell that story without kind of doing something like that. Like there's no way these characters would meet like in this context other than kind of just accepting that fact. And one of the ones I read again even before this, was Superman and the Darkness crossover, where basically it's like Jackie comes to I think he goes to Metropolis trying to like establish like some kind of crime connection there, and like Metallo is like somehow involved, and he's basically kind of making life hell for both him and Superman. So like he and Superman sort of team up to save like Lois Lane, who gets kidnapped by Metallo and these mobsters. And it's one of those where it's like this is made solely so these characters could interact. Like there's no real, I mean, there's not much else to it. Like they're aside, like the personality Jackie brings to Superman is not anything we haven't seen before. In the sense that like he's an asshole meeting like the ultimate good guy.
Basically, yeah.
Obviously, Superman doesn't like him, and the only reason why he's even working with him is because Lois Lane is in danger. But one thing I'll always remember is that like there's like a shot, and I know I put it in the video here, where Jackie punches Superman across the face, and he like for a brief moment you see some blood, and I was like, that was probably the strongest feat Jackie's ever had in the history of his run.
I'm assuming because magic.
Not only that,
man.
Because the Darkness is a mystical entity, so it makes sense for Jack to be able to draw blood from Clark.
Yeah, but it's like that's
still
like
pretty badass though.
That's like the fight. Like that's pretty much it. Like he punches Superman, he summons a dragon. Superman struggles with a dragon for a bit, and then the sun comes up and it's over. And Jackie's like, "All right, Metropolis ain't worth the effort."
Yeah, he's like, Metropolis ain't shit.
And then like there's the Batman crossover, which I haven't read yet, but this is me not reading it, but just like I kind of hope that it's like he went to Metropolis, tried to set up like a base there, that failed, so then he went to Gotham.
And then Batman's just like, no, dude.
Actually, wasn't it Batman that got him to retire from being in the mob in the first place?
Yeah, so that's another thing I was gonna mention is that, and this goes back to the whole weird continuity when it comes to these comics, is that when it comes to like the more mainstream side, the Marvel DC side of things, these crossovers are almost never canonized in any way. However, on the other side of the spectrum, especially when it comes to like Image and some of like Top Cow side of things, sometimes these crossovers are canon and they will be referenced in some moments, or they'll kind of be alluded to. And it's probably not the best example because I know I talked about Medieval Spawn and Witchblade earlier, but another example, well, it's not the best example, especially considering it's not really um, dealing with Witchblade and Darkness, but it's with Spawn. There's like a Spawn Batman crossover, and like in the crossover, Batman throws a batarang at Spawn, and it like hits him in the face, and it leaves this like scar on his face. And then like the next few issues of Spawn, you see the scar, and like technically that crossover is canon in Spawn's side of things. It's not canon to Batman, but it is canon to Spawn. And you do find some instances like that in Darkness and Witchblade where the crossover is never referenced in like one side of things, but it is technically canon in the other side of things. And so I feel like stuff like that, as cool as it is, and it does give some like weight to the crossover, like showing the person who read it, like, oh yeah, that crossover mattered. However, at the same time, it does lead to some very confusing like continuities in the sense that like, so you're telling me somewhere in the Marvel universe, the Darkness is around.
Then again, Marvel had a crossover with Godzilla, and Thor was actually scared of Godzilla. And it was the
I
Hanna
remember that.
Barbera Godzilla too, which makes it even funnier.
Also, something else to consider is that, you know, with the new 52, I'm sure that the Batman and the universe where Batman and the Darkness existed together probably got wiped out. Thanks a lot, Flash.
You have one job, Flash. You have one fucking job, man.
Don't fuck up the timelines, because if you do, it'll fuck up the future. And what did he do?
He fucked up.
He fucked up.
I think that's like part of it. Like whenever the timeline gets jumped, that's when like those crossovers truly get uncanonized. But I know, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Eris. They were pointing out a Witchblade Superman crossover, which I didn't see that in my search. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that.
It was a Witchblade Superman crossover?
Yeah, they're saying there's a Witchblade Superman crossover where like she also made Superman bleed, which again that makes perfect sense because it is a magical artifact.
Yeah, but I feel like Clark and Sarah would get along pretty well because they are heroes.
Right, because Witchblade isn't like the Darkness where it's like
Sarah's
anti-hero.
definitely she's definitely a better, nicer person than Jackie Estacado ever was.
Has she ever tried to kill him?
Yes.
Sort
of.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Because I get the feeling that she would try to kill him at some point.
Well, their first introduction to each other, he was sent to assassinate her. But this was, again, after she had the Witchblade, so he couldn't do shit.
And he didn't have the Darkness at that point, right?
Yeah, but even with the Darkness, again, like the Witchblade is designed to fight the Angelus and the Darkness, so it's not like even with the Darkness, he's not necessarily got a true advantage over her.
Yeah, true. I bet that even the Darkness was like, yeah, we might want to not do this.
Okay, so it's the JLA Witchblade crossover. Okay, so that's I thought that might have been it. So okay, in issue 181, she decapitated Jackie.
Oh shit!
But again, I think like in terms of darkness continuity, like that wouldn't fully kill him. Not
No,
really.
I mean he survived getting blown up after Jenny died, so I can't
If I
imagine getting his head chopped off would do that much.
Yeah, I don't know if they change. Again, I'm getting my video game / comic continuities mixed up. But if I remember correctly, like, he basically like it takes like very specific stuff to truly kill him. Like either the Angelus has to be the one to kill him, or the darkness has to be ripped from him and then you kill him, or the darkness has to get to a point where it's straight up like I don't like you anymore. I need a new host. Like
Yeah,
there's
it's
like
like
certain
it's like sorry,
criterias.
Jackie, we're done.
There's certain criterias. Also, like, what was the other crossover I was going to bring? Okay, so yeah, this is the crossover I really wanted to bring up because it is by far the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. I know it's on here somewhere on this video, but have you ever heard of a title called Overkill?
I think I saw the cover in there. It was like Predator and Alien. It
It's
looked like the Witchblade was in there too. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
it's serious. It's the
No,
title.
no, that's actually
Overkill.
Mindhunter.
No, okay, so there's a funny story with that. So you have Overkill, Witchblade, Aliens, Darkness, Predator, and it is literally all those properties together in one.
That is
Mindhunter,
nuts.
Mindhunter is the sequel to Overkill, because apparently this is what I was reading into was that like there was supposed like Overkill was supposed to be like a mini series, but no one fucking read it. So then they made Mindhunter, which is like it's like a one shot kind of thing, and it's like it wraps up the story that was started in Overkill.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking like this had to have been one of those where it's like, who in their right mind thought this was a good idea?
That just
Like,
sounds like a mess, but like an entertaining one.
Yeah, because it's like, especially in like the '90s, there was like an era where crossovers were just done because they could be done.
Yeah, look at Marvel versus DC.
Mm-hmm. To be fair though, that was probably that probably is like the most requested crossover you could possibly do.
Yeah, I know a lot of people really like that kind of.
And then you had the Amalgam comics, which
That got weird.
technically crossovers, but are essentially their own continuity.
I just remember the Batman Wolverine amalgam, and it's like that just looks so fucking weird. Like, the thing that drove me crazy was okay, he has Wolverine's claws, but they're Batman symbols. It's like the claws are Batman symbols.
BRB a sec.
I was like, okay, it was fine up until that point. I was like, okay, that's ridiculous. That's too ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like, I know it's comic book. I know it's supposed to get dumb as hell. But it's like, okay.
Yeah, because I remember there's like, it's like Superboy and Spider-Man in one.
I don't even want to know how that will work.
It's so weird because I always get it confused because I know the Amalgam comics are their own separate entities. However, I still get them confused with like the actual Marvel DC crossovers because I know there's one where it's like Spider-Man and Batman teamed up and like they're chasing down like Carnage and the Joker, which in my opinion, like that should have been the end of New York. That should have been the
That
end
really
of world
would
life.
be.
You're telling me the two pure agents of chaos have finally teamed up. Like,
Yeah, you guys are fucked.
At what point you just get the Infinity Stones and like, all right, we're just starting over here. There's no point.
Yeah, we just gotta
to
eat this shit.
in this. Oh god. What was the other thing though? But yeah, like it's kind of crazy how some of these crossovers. Let me see if because I'm looking through the Witchblade crossover. Let me just pull up the Darkness crossovers. 'Cause I know I had some of them. I know there's one with like the Hulk.
Gee, they really did freaking work with everybody, didn't they?
Yeah, looks like it.
Also,
like-
I might have to take a look at that Darkness. Oh wait, no, that's just the first regular issue. Never mind.
There's
because that Stephen Kochik did the cover for that Darkness. I'm like, I need to see that.
Okay, that piece of art from the Darkness 2 game, I love that piece of art with Jackie sitting in the chair with the looking all depressed and darkness is like coming around him.
Yeah, and it's got like the wings, even though he never really makes wings for the darkness.
They almost had him wear the armor thing, like there's a power up you can get when you temporarily gain armor. And it's
Well,
like,
yeah.
oh, we were so close to actually having it from the comic.
Well, yeah, because he wear like so. It's funny is that, and this is kind of like a weird thing in the game. So like I know in the first one, that apparently that was a criticism. People were like, "Where's the armor? We want the armor." Especially since in the comics he pretty much wears the armor every time he uses the darkness.
Every time.
And so when you get the upgrade in the comic and in the second game, you see it on your arms, but you never get to see the full body. And what's funny is that like in the game, it has working mirrors, right? And so it's like technically, if you got in front of a working mirror, you should be able to see the armor. However, there are no working mirrors in basic gameplay.
So you can never see it in basic gameplay without like hacking or something.
Yeah, you can never see. I don't think I couldn't even find if like there was like hacks to see it, but like that would be something that pissed me off, especially as later I get more into the darkness. It's like, come on, man, just give us the armor.
Yeah.
But I guess
the reason
like,
why I think they didn't do it in the first one was because I don't think it might not have ended up looking good.
and I think just technically
the style
speaking,
they went with.
Like in the first game, you're fighting mobsters and stuff. So technically speaking, if he's wearing that armor, they can't do anything to him. Not really.
Yeah, they really can't.
But that's still like it's wasted opportunity right there.
Yeah, and it's funny. Speaking of wasted opportunity, in the original, in the concept art they include in the game, if you look, there actually is concept art for the Angelus in the first game.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that. There's a lot of cool concept art for the first game, and like that first game was awesome, and like it definitely was trying to cater to like fans of the comics to some degree. Like it wasn't one of those where it's like screw the fans. No, it was like, all right, we're making this accessible to everybody, but we got to put enough to where even
the fans are happy. They're happy.
Still gonna enjoy it. And like I remember seeing the concept art for the Angelus. I remember seeing there was concept art for like. I think there was concept art for armor as well.
I can't remember if there was for that. I do remember there was one for like a monster that was cut.
Yeah, I remember there was one for a monster. I think. Oh man, there's so much like cool little stuff when it came to like the behind the scenes for that.
The thing that I liked about the first game was it kind of had a horror vibe to it. The second one really doesn't. Me.
Yeah, the first one definitely has almost like a horror game vibe, especially when you get to hell.
Yeah.
Especially.
Hey,
like with the whole undead World War I soldiers that if you don't eat their hearts, they come back. And it's the way they come back. It's like they're being defibrillated back to life. But it's like
they like
slow
rise,
and very creepy.
Yeah, they literally like rise like zombies, where it's like half their body rises and then the rest of the half comes up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been a while since I've seen the second game, but I'm kind of getting a bit of a John Wick vibe from it. You know, basically the guy wanted to retire and be with his woman, and all of a sudden life found a way.
Kind of. And at the opening, you are still the mob boss, but you just have like shut the darkness out completely.
Yeah, because I think in the first game, like the context is that like he used his reputation of the darkness to kind of establish power. Not only did not to say he didn't have his own merits, but like
just to add just to sweeten the deal.
Like pretty much every mobster in the city knew he had some kind of weird power, and that's how he killed Paulie, and therefore they were like that was enough to keep them from like going crazy against him. But at the same time, he really didn't have the darkness, so he kind of just bluffed his way to power in a way.
I know in the first game, like you had towards the end, you had a lot of the old mafia guys saying that they were on your side and that they wanted Paulie gone.
Yeah, because like in the, I think this is also in the comics too. Is that like after I think his name was Frankie. I think Frankie was the original Don for the Franchetti family. Like when he dies, Paulie takes over, And while Frankie, he was still ruthless, he still had at least some kind of mind for business, to where Paulie was kind of more power hungry. And in
Yeah.
the game, it's pretty much like Paulie, like he's very much more like rash. They kind of take that angle where like the mafia are the bad guys, but at the same time, like they had their merits.
Yeah.
And so Paulie, he was kind of one of those where it's like, fuck the merits. We're just here to make money and shit like that.
Yeah, we're just here to make money off our drug sales and kill people.
Yeah. And again, I'm a big fan of like modern day stuff meets the supernatural. I love that kind of shit, and I think part of that love was born from the Darkness, Witchblade, and Spawn. So, as much as I like the second game, Introduction of the Dark Brotherhood, I gotta say I do kind of prefer just going against monsters, but at the same time I get why A, that would get boring, and B, in the grand scheme of things, they are not a threat to you in any way.
Yeah, they really not. Though I do miss how the horror element of the first one with the second one, because that was visiting that, and the second one does this thing which I always hate when games do this, where they make you walk into a trap, and it's just like your character should know this is a fucking trap. And it's like the game makes you get caught anyway. It's like, come on. Like, even like at least make it so I'm not like I'm genuinely surprised when I get caught the first time playing this. You know what I mean? Especially since you already had a scene like that earlier, where you got caught, and then the only reason you didn't get caught is because of Darkness. It was like, oh yeah, Jenny, I have Jenny, dumbass.
Yeah, I
like,
remember.
If you let him take me, you lose Jenny forever, dude.
Yeah, I remember stuff like that. And one thing that always kind of got me, again, because like I'm kind of curious as to like I know in the second game they introduced the Angelus. I wonder if I doubt it, but I wonder if the third game they would, if it was a trilogy, if they would have introduced the Witchblade at some point.
I'm kind of wondering if like the Witchblade, if you'd actually have to, if she'd end up being like the main antagonist or something.
I don't know, because I feel like it makes more sense to have the Angelus.
I'm thinking maybe like you like the Witchblade would have started out as an antagonist towards you, but then at some point you and her kind of team up or something.
Yeah, like you make a deal with her and that, like, all right, listen, you help me take out the Angelus, and I'll be, I'll kind of keep the Darkness in check or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of how the comics go in some aspects, where again, like the Angelus is displayed as being like this crazy bitch.
Yeah, psycho bitch tipped out up to 11.
Yeah, I love that. There's a part in the comics that always gets me where it's like Jackie kidnaps one of like the Darkness or the Angelus's like lovers, like one of her constructs, and like they're using it as a hostage, and basically like the it tries to get away and ends up killing itself. And then the Angelus blames him for it. And I'm like, all right, listen here, bitch. I understand I kidnapped her, but I didn't kill her. That's her own damn fault.
That's fucking funny. That is funny.
And that was one thing that always kind of threw me off, because like again, like especially as the comics go on later, you get to realize that the Angelus literally is the opposite of the Darkness, in the sense that a lot of the stuff that it does, like a lot of stuff it does, like she will do as well. Like she'll create constructs to be her companions as opposed to surrounding herself with people. Her creations, like the Darklings, are basically just yes men. Like they'll just do whatever she says, and then like pretty much her like posse. I was like, yeah, boss, that was a great idea. And it's funny because it's like, in a way, like when you see it from the Darkness angle, I know like the Angelus is supposed to be like the more serious side of things, but it's still kind of funny to imagine that like she's essentially surrounding herself with yes men who can't say no. Like she's
surrounded by simps.
Yeah, she's just there. They're just there to stroke her ego, and she doesn't even realize it.
It's
Well,
it's kind of
yeah,
like when
the
people are
dark
like,
one,
we
yeah,
I'm
oh,
anti you, and then it's like you do the same shit.
Yeah, like how she's been outsmarted by the darkness multiple times. Like even though she's like killed the darkness several times, she's been outsmarted by it multiple times as well. And it's usually like kind of simple ways too. Like they'll just make a decoy and let the decoy get killed while the real one escapes. And I'm like okay, like I get it, you fell for it for the first time, but how the hell you fall for this shit twice?
There's actually an issue where Jackie does that because like there's like this special military group hunting him, and he figures out I'm gonna make my Darklings look like me, so they think they've killed me.
Yeah, he does that to the Angelus. Like when the new Angelus gets resurrected, he literally does that, and he's just like, I gotta figure shit out before I take her on. And I'm like, this bitch. Like, and it was funny because they talked about that moment earlier in the story as like as just a storytelling thing, and it's actually done somewhat clever in how it's executed, where it's like they tell you the story kind of a couple issues ago, and then he pulls it off for this one. And what's so funny about it is that like they even mention like even though this is a new Angelus, she technically does have the memories of the old Angelus. So for the fact that she fell for it twice, she's gonna be extra pissed off about that.
Yeah, I imagine she would. Like, I fell for this shit again.
I thought that shit.
Again?
I thought that shit was so funny, and then like even the idea that like the Angelus, despite all its like power, all its like craziness, it is still technically like a flawed creation, much like any other creation in the story. And so to me, the idea of that it just got outsmarted by a fucking mobster that she thinks is a fucking idiot is fucking hilarious, to my
It
opinion.
is. That is pretty hilarious. Then again, she's so blinded by rage. It's like, yeah, you are. You probably would be easy to fool.
Well, I mean,
Easier than you think, anyway.
How long has he been? Was she trying to get him by that point?
So in the context of the story, the Angelus has been around since. She's not as old as the Darkness. Like she was born specifically to hunt it down.
Uh-huh.
But like that particular version, like when Jackie becomes the host of the Darkness, the Angelus that's alive at that point, I think she's like 900 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kills her, and so the new one comes up, and she's literally like she was just born that day when he pulled the trick on her. But if I remember correctly, they point out that like when it comes to like the Angelus host, it's not quite the same when it comes to the Darkness host. Like the Darkness host, they maintain their personality, but for the Angelus, they pretty much become the Angelus and maintain bits and pieces of their original.
Yeah, it's not like you're sharing a body with this thing. It's like, no, I'm just gonna hijack your body.
Yeah, like the Angelus becomes the host in a sense. They like there is no real like symbiotic relationship when it comes to like the Angelus. It essentially becomes you. It adopts bits and pieces of your personality.
Is the host even like aware of like what the Angelus does while it's possessing them?
No, it's like it kind of frames it as like they become one person, and like because she doesn't kill her daughter, but she accidentally like fries her brain because like what's his name, Fontaine, he straight up says like when the daughter is like going to the Angelus who's like infected her, possessed her mother. He's like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. He's like, Jack is like, what do you mean? It's like she literally has the power of like the sun in her hands, and I doubt she even recognizes it. There's a good chance she just fries her daughter simply by touching her, but she doesn't know that.
Whoops.
And then again, I love Sautain. Like he's becoming one of my favorite villains in comics, where like she touches her daughter, she fries her brain, and then she's freaking out like, what happened, what happened to my daughter? And he's before anyone has a chance to explain, Sauntaine's like, yeah, Jackie, he infected her with the darkness, so when you touch her, your powers will automatically activate and burn her.
Oh, that's fucked up.
And then she's like, you will pay for this, Estacado. And Sauntaine's like, later, Jackie.
He's a fucking troll.
He's like, again, I love reading like, I don't want to say like lesser known comics, but I love reading stuff like this because you start to find characters that it's like again, like there's no real depth to his character. He's just an asshole, but at the same time, that's what your villain needs to be ultimately. Just an asshole. That's enough.
That's why I like Dio from JoJo so much. Like, dude is just a freaking bastard. Like, there's no attempt to humanize him really. There's no real. Well, there is kind of a tragic bastard. Like, he's an abusive dad, but it's like they're not. It's not presented way. It was like you're supposed to feel bad for this dude. On some level, it's like, nah, he's just an asshole. It's just why he's an asshole, pretty much. A part of it.
That's why I really love like his whole like memory wipe thing, because it's like he probably could kill these guys instantly or something like that, but he's just having fun with it.
He's just having too much fun. He's like, nah, I'm not gonna kill you.
He's the one who says the quote like, "Have you ever seen Star Wars? The darkness is the Force on crack."
You can
Does that make the Angelus like the light side of the Force on crack?
I guess that's actually that's probably an accurate depiction.
To be fair, she's not. She's like a fanatic Jedi on crack.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'd be looking at the Jedi and it's like y'all are kind of dogmatic and nuts too. Especially in expanded lore. Some of the shit is like y'all.
It reminds me of a comic I saw one time with where it basically shows that they probably could have avoided Darth Vader becoming a thing if they just let Anakin do his thing.
Yeah, they really could have.
Where basically the whole thing was like him just continuing to get more and more frustrated and angry with life because like, oh no, I have to hide my secret love of Padme. Oh no, I've just gotten married to her and I have to keep this a secret for everyone. I feel so ashamed.
Oh no, I got her pregnant.
I got my secret wife pregnant. It makes me want to kill all the Jedi. And then you see like Yoda going to Luke, handing him some condoms, and he's like, Here you go. Bone yourself some whores.
Okay,
Luke,
so
that's like, what the hell?
I'm reading some of
trust me.
I'm reading some of the comments, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Eris. She points out something. And I actually find this kind of interesting. I'm gonna share it real quick, but it's like the darkness, or the Angelus like is basically mad at the darkness. Like a lover, something like that. Like basically, like, they had like a love child, which was the Witchblade.
Oh no!
Which again, as I said,
don't stick your dick in crazy.
Like again, I kind of pointed this out is that like there is some of that element into that story, where like her hatred for the darkness does seem like one of those where it's like again, like it's easy to say like, oh, it was just like that's just the nature of things. But there are some moments where she straight up scolds him like a scorned lover. And like they have that kind of banter sometimes.
That's funny.
And apparently there was an Angelus host that was able to like maintain her personality after being the Angelus. Which is issue 128 of Witchblade. So I'm going to check that out.
That's interesting. And someone was able to keep their personality.
I mean, that is kind of like the ultimate goal when it comes to like these hosts. It's like you could have the entire universe in your hands if you somehow got control over this entity. The problem is you're just a human. This entity is literally this super ancient entity. You're not
incomparable.
Really
its age is basically incomparable to you. Like you probably aren't getting the upper hand in this.
Yeah, I think that's even like stated in like at least in the game, where it's like you're getting like when Jackie does get control over it, it's like, Jackie, you don't understand. You have control now, but it's going to get control later. Like I think there's even a quote where the darkness straight up says like, okay, host, I'll let you have control now, but later we're gonna get back to this.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna come put a pen in that. We're gonna come back to the subject later, and you're not gonna like how it turns out.
All right, I'll let you get your revenge. All right, we'll settle this shit later.
Yeah, it's just humoring him at that point. It's like, yeah, I'm just humoring you.
I've waited billions of years for my freedom. I can wait a couple of days.
Yeah, a couple days is nothing to me. You go ahead. You think you got control?
Also, I think we mentioned this. The Witchblade is a male.
Yeah, I think we did mention that earlier.
Yeah, which it kind of gives a different context to like why it always attaches itself to women.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, it does seem to be awfully close when it comes to the armor pieces.
yeah, it does seem to like certain areas.
Also, it makes me wonder, like, so Jay, you watched the anime, right? Like, you've seen the entire thing, right?
The whole thing, yeah.
So, how much would you like? I know I know pretty much for the most part, it's like because I didn't get to finish it. How much would you say it like ties to the main Witchblade story? It like what similarities does it have?
Okay. Here's something that's interesting. I definitely wouldn't say that it's linked in the traditional way. I mean, no, it's not even linked in the traditional way. Let's call this a Elseworld story. There are similarities in the sense that it only chooses women, and any time a guy tries to choose it, it doesn't end well. They
Does it
do
just straight up kill them?
It basically chomps off their arm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it tends to do that. Let's see. Interestingly enough, they do have some influences from the comic, because there's this one old dude in there who, unlike the Irons, is an old man that's trying to revive the Witchblade. Although the purposes are vastly different. At least I think it's vastly different. I might not have gotten that far into the comic yet, but the main villain, at least the first main villain, I should say, he's doing this to create the perfect woman, in a sense, someone that would be able to take control of the queen. I was about to say Queen Blade, no, the Witchblade, and such. And then there's this other organization who kind of massively fucked up when it came to bioweapons, and now they're trying to clean up their mess. But at least they're trying to be better about it. So.
we're trying.
What's up?
No, I was saying we're trying.
What's that
Yeah,
South
they're
Park
trying.
episode with the BP oil spill?
Yeah, I guess they got to. We're sorry.
Yeah, think of that. But there's like these living bioweapons that look human and
I
turn
know what
into
you're talking
machine
about
guns.
too. Like they literally create a bunch of bioweapons that go around murdering women, and it's like we're sorry.
We thought that'd be a good idea.
We're
Oh,
sorry.
and of course there's the similarities in terms of both of them have children, but to be honest, that's pretty much where most of the similarities end. Now it's been a while. Now there is one thing I did want to ask, because maybe I missed this. When the longer this goes on, the more the Witchblade kind of takes control and stuff. Does the Witchblade user eventually get kind of excited to do the killing and stuff like that?
I do know as the comic goes on, Sarah becomes more open to the Witchblade. Also, it's kind of funny because like I know the comic and part of the lore is that the Witchblade attaches itself to women, but so far from what I read in the comics, it's been on a couple of men too. Like what's his name, Irons, he wore it for a brief moment, but they kind of emphasized that was like the incomplete Witchblade. And then what is Nottingham? He literally wore it for a good while, but it slowly like corrupted him. But again, he was wearing the Witchblade and using it.
They
but,
did.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. I was just saying is that like I do know like as time goes on, like she does become more open to it. I don't know if you could chalk it up as it kind of corrupting her, because I know like in the anime, I want to say it's corrupting her, but it does kind of influence her. I don't know if the same can be said for the comic, and I'm only saying that as like I haven't gotten that far into it.
Okay. Well, in this, it's kind of interesting. At first, she's very much influenced, like right there, by the Witchblade, and she gets her rocks off by killing these bioweapons, but only the bioweapons. She gets no pleasure from humans or anything else like that. But later on, you find out that there's this thing called the clone blades, and that's that white-haired dude's attempt to basically replicate the Witchblade.
Right.
And like before, it works predominantly on women, and of course, all of them are hot because reasons.
Anime.
Because Japan.
And although there is one time that they made a Witchblade, or should I say, a clone blade that worked for a dude. Unfortunately, he did lose his mind. So that was kind of unfortunate for that dude. But the bad thing about the clone blade, similar to what happened in the comic, if you wear it too long or if you get weakened too much, the clone blade will eventually kill you. So,
yeah, because I think that's a thing in like the comics as well. Is that like technically there are other people who have worn the Witchblade, but if you're not like the host it intended to wear it, it's not gonna turn out well for you. Like it's deliberately like no, I'm cooperating now, but this is gonna not end well for you.
The blade is like, this is temporary. Don't get it twisted.
I just need a hand to sit on, all right, man? You hear me? I just need someone to attach myself to.
It's like, you're not my first round pick, okay? Or my second round pick.
Also, again, like, and okay, I want to make this clear. I'm not trying to be a Puritan here. I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing. But one thing that really kind of got me, because I knew before watching the show, that it was definitely more ecchi than, especially the comics. Like the comics was more fan servicey, just in its appearance. However, the anime was definitely more just ecchi all around. However,
well, here's the funny thing that I was noticing about this. The anime came out in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to double check that just for my records. But here's the thing. Around this time period, certain anime was actually being toned down a little bit. Witchblade.
The anime was 2006.
Oh, it was 06?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it was interesting because it was around this time period where anime was starting to kind of tone down a little bit. So, yes, it had some ecchi-like elements, but there was no nudity in it whatsoever. And also something that was kind of interesting is when she turned into the Witchblade, when she went out of Witchblade mode, she actually still had her clothes. So it's kind of interesting because it looked like that basically she only has the armor and nothing else. But I'm sometimes wonder if that's like a second skin. But anyways, but also something to note is even though it was pretty violent, it's not nearly as violent as you expect. If you ever think, to kind of put this in perspective, the time period before this was the 90s. And if you ever seen some of the violence in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah, surprisingly, compared to that, this was really tame. So it was just kind of weird that it's mature when potentially it could be PG-13. I mean, yes, granted, there's some naughty bits. Some guys acting a little bit more on the naughty side, but there's no nudity in it whatsoever. So it's kind of strange. It doesn't go too far either way.
Because it looks like it would have like some nudity in there.
Like, again, I'm not trying to be a Puritan, but like, if I had no idea what anime was, like, if I didn't really if I was one of those people who didn't really get what was going on, if I didn't have any context of Witchblade, and I just saw the Witchblade anime, like just kind of surface level wise, I'd be like, this is that hentai the children keep talking about, right? Like, again, I'm not trying to knock on it because I'm not against that kind of stuff, but I can see why someone might think that. Well, I will say this though about the anime again, because like I'm probably gonna go ahead and finish the series. I think I got to like episode 4. I will say,
how many episodes is it?
It's like 24. Oh no, 26. You might be right.
24, 26. It's like in the 20s. I will say this: the music, the soundtrack. Like, if you ever want to get me to get into something like a movie, even like if you want to get my attention on something, one of the easiest ways to do it is a soundtrack. Like, even if it's something that I'm not going to be into, if you got the right music, I'm going to be all over that. And the music in that show, in that anime, was top notch. Like, that opening song, like, like where he basically kind of spells out the tone of the show. Literally talk about like ecstasy and stuff like that. Like I'm totally into that shit, man.
So what you're saying is I need to watch this at some point.
If you have Hulu, yes.
I have Hulu, so I can watch
Well,
it.
if you let me put it this way, because me, I'm one of those people like this might get me kicked off YouTube or something, but I'm not totally against piracy. I'm not. I've been in situations where I understand it. If you want to watch it without having to go through Hulu, I'll send you a link.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
dude, I've had to do that before too.
Yeah, like I'm sorry. I've lived in situations. I've met people who've lived in worse situations. I understand that, like, sometimes piracy is the morally correct way. I'm sorry. As someone who also likes to create stuff, I get it. I get it. But yeah, like that show. Honestly, in retro, like again, I haven't finished it yet, so I don't want to say that because I'm one of those people like an ending of a show can ruin it for me.
Oh yeah.
But so far from what I'm seeing, I'm totally down for paying for it. Maybe not Hulu, but I'll buy it on DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah, fair enough.
So the DVD and Blu-ray is probably gonna cost you an arm and a leg, given how old it is.
Yeah, but if it's good enough, I'm not too broken up by that.
Okay, then in that case, I won't say anything else about it. But as I said before, for a 2008 anime, I thought overall it was pretty solid. Please bear in mind that I had to be very specific on how I said that.
Again, it's like okay, this might sound I don't know how this is going to sound, but like I kind of like how the Witchblade in that show is almost like a sexual release, because I did study in like psychology and stuff like that, and there is a difference, but there is some similarities when it comes to like violence and like sexuality. Like sometimes like the releases it will give you, like the feelings still sometimes will give you.
I've heard that. I've heard that before. That's something that can happen.
Yeah, and it's like
which sounds kind of sociopathic to say that, but it's
that's
like
why I don't want to. That's why I don't want to get too into it, because it's one of those where it's like, oh, you're horny, well, go kill something. But no, that's not what I'm saying. It's like sometimes it's like
your brain's like signals are similar.
Yeah, well, the best way to describe it is basically like your body has a lot of pent up energy and it needs to expend it in some way, and sometimes those two actions correlate with each other: violence and sex.
I'm now reminded of the one guy in the Gantz anime who was basically insinuating that the main character that he likes killing. And he was trying to project it to everyone else. He's like, it was kind of cringy in the English dub at least. He's like, it turns out it's better than sex, isn't it? And he's like, just not even like dude, not even like attempting to not come off like a psychopath.
Yeah, like there's a whole. We could have a whole stream talking about that. How like how the releases of each one, like some of the some of the feelings and like the things it gives off are very similar to one another, but at the same time, I kind of like that in the sense, like I'm not trying to sound like a freaking Coomer or whatever, however you say it, but like I kind of like that shit in the anime in the sense that it kind of portrayed it as such, where it's like it's straight up like a release. It's like all that pent up energy is finally being released, and I'm sure someone could say like, "Oh, you're just being like horny for it," and you're like, "God damn right, I am being to a degree." Because goddamn, that
it's human nature, like.
Because that armor and that fucking
it's like, come on, like if that was standing in front of you and she asked you, "Do I look hot?" Then you'd be like, "Yes." Like probably without hesitation, like, "Yep." Even if it was a chance she'd kill you for saying it, it's like I'd probably like, you know what? Yeah. Yeah, it's like I'm gonna die an honest person.
Nah, baby, I'm a Dark Lord. I'm gonna find a way to survive.
Well, you might. I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna die honest. Like, yep.
I've
At
survived.
least you're able to die with honor.
I've survived. I was about to say, like, I've survived plenty of shit, and if I die with honor.
Basically, like, I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, if Sauron was able to, survive being blown apart into little pieces, and actually, that was one of those things I was kind of curious. Did you piece yourself back together? Did you have your horde do it? I didn't figure that happened.
Yeah, that must have been an interesting experience to have to do that.
I pulled myself back together through sheer will.
Sauron was too angry to die.
I was about to say I'm too angry to die. Local Dark
Local
Lord's
news.
Too angry to die.
Yep.
I
just want a character who they just describe his power as just as like, what's his power? He gets pissed off. He's just like profoundly pissed.
Hulk,
yeah, basically Hulk, but like actually acknowledge it. It's like, what's your power? He's just angry. Like, it's not even that he's got like actual powers. It's just he's just so angry that he just refuses to die.
Man, like, I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of like these properties like Witchblade and Darkness, because like, even though they have things given them their powers, a lot of it can be summarized as to them themselves. It's like the power is only limited by what they are capable of making it do. And
yeah,
it's like with Jackie Estacado in some cases. How did he survive that? local Italian mobster too angry to die.
Basically. That is how mafia works.
Local NYPD detective too angry to die.
Yeah. Like, that is how mafia works.
That's one thing I also seen where like some of like the Darkness like arcs, they can kind of be summarized as him fighting other mobsters and stuff. It kind of like they'll occasionally touch upon like the what do you call it, like the supernatural element, but it kind of always devolves back into that.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
But again, I'm biased. I kind of love that kind of shit. Like, I low key love like regular everyday life meets supernatural.
Yeah, it's cool when they pull it off, when they can pull it off.
Out of curiosity, do you actually like the show Supernatural?
You know what? I'm gonna be perfectly real with you. Like, I've only seen like a few episodes of Supernatural, and it was like, I'm trying to think, when was it? It was back when I was in Cuba. Some friends of mine, we were watching like TV shows, and like I can't remember how we got to it, but they basically tricked us into watching Supernatural.
Huh.
And like it was like they weren't starting from season 1 because they were like, no, I'm not starting from season 1. I've seen season 1 so many times. It was like they were fighting some creatures called Leviathan.
I think that was season 6.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, they were watching season 6, and I was watching this, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And they were telling me about how all the other previous seasons, they were fighting all sorts of stuff. And I remember saying, like, oh, so it's like Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, they introduce you to this, like, ultimate evil, and then next season, it's like, oh, here's this other ultimate evil, and you're like, wait, I thought the last evil was the ultimate evil. Yes, it was, but this one's now an even greater evil.
Well, in the original season 5, that's basically kind of where I checked out because it ended pretty well, and they probably could have just ended the show, and it would have been perfect, for the type of show that it is. It basically ended up showing that God kind of checked out of existence at that time. I think he comes back later, but he kind of checked out of existence. So the angels have been running the show, and now the angels basically want to jumpstart the apocalypse. So there's one angel that wants to basically save what God has brought up, including humans-ish. And then you have Lucifer, who basically wants to let all humans burn and stuff like that. So they're going to basically jumpstart the apocalypse to make that a thing. So, and then
lovely.
Yeah, and then what ended up happening was the only way that they can come back to Earth is they needed 2 vessels to allow them to inhibit them, and then they basically would fight, and then if Michael won, then whoever survived would humanity-wise would be able to basically take over the Earth, and then if Lucifer survived, he basically would have his fun because he's Lucifer that way. And then what ended up happening is, of course, the 2 brothers were the ones that were the chosen vessels. And it didn't quite go according to plan. And by the time everything was said and done, one of the brothers ended up going down to hell with Satan and with Lucifer and what's his face, Michael, the two archangels. So that's basically how it ended.
Oh, that's a he got the raw on his stick.
Yeah, well, they gave hints that he somehow escaped.
Oh, they did that thing where it's like, oh no, the character escaped that really fucked up situation we left him in.
Yep, and Dean
kind of like
ended
the
up...
Darkness too, where he just escaped the darkness, and
oh my god, it actually did kind of end like that.
Yeah, it really did. Holy shit!
With a girl that had a kid that they kind of teased that was his, but not. But of course, it looks exactly like him. But whatever. And it looked like he had a semi-happily ever after. Then season 6 happened. I was like, you fuckers!
They just couldn't let him rest, huh?
And then
every time I thought it was out, they put me back in.
Oh damn! I just realized. So you remember how you were talking about earlier with Jackie pulling out someone's like spine and skeleton?
Yep,
there
that's
you go,
the scene.
right here.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh shit.
I knew I seen that somewhere before, and there you go, right there. Holy shit!
Yeah,
damn, he went
yeah,
full Predator.
That's issue 2 of The Darkness.
Yeah,
yeah.
That was an issue 2. I don't remember that part.
It wasn't issue 2, but it was.
But it definitely was in the comic.
It was definitely early issues. It's like before issue 10.
Yeah, the context of that was someone was trying to kill the dude's uncle. He didn't take it too kindly, so he found the two people he thought was responsible, beheaded one dude immediately, and then the second guy, he put the darkness crap or whatever it is up the dude's nose and really fucked up everything to the point he could literally rip the dude's skeleton outside of his skin.
Oh man, like that's one thing I always kind of, again, it's like, what's the best way to describe it? Like, I mean, it's no secret I prefer villains. If you haven't caught that on by name alone, I prefer kind of villainous characters, and not even in the edgy way. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to advocate that deep down these are some really good people. No, screw it. Jackie Estacado's a bastard, but I kind of love that about him. Like, I love that, like, there's that unhinged level to him. I like how, like, when he's trying to get a message across, he's not afraid to just brutalize him. And I do appreciate that even though the comics don't really do too good of a job of it early on, he does have a heart to him to a degree, because he's doing this because they basically tried to murder the man who adopted and raised him. So, there is that little bit of context to it. And so I kind of like that kind of shit where it's like, you try to kill my father, all bets are off. Rips out that dude's entire skeleton. Like,
yeah, I was like, bro,
that's overkill. But like, I don't condone this behavior, but I understand.
Oh yeah,
that Bernie Mac meme is. I love that meme. I'm not saying I condone this behavior, but I understand. It's like, yeah, there's some points in life you just like, yeah, I understand. Why you're doing this shit.
Speaking of that, there's a moment in the Darkness comics where I think I mentioned it earlier, but it's like, so like, what's his name? Frankie. His wife is pretty much like a potato. Like, she's pretty much like got no brain function. She's like, there's like nothing to her. She's like barely alive. And Jackie, he asked one of the mobsters like, what happened to her? And basically it's like, so like Frankie, he came to America. He pretty much took over the crime family. He was like the best leader they had. And he married this like blonde woman, and all the people in the family were like, this is a bad idea. But he's like, no, I don't care. I'm marrying her anyways. I love her. And then he finds her in bed with like some other dude.
Oh,
and so in order to like, get his vengeance, he ties her up, hangs the lover like on a chain or something, and just tortures the man to death. And I'm like, I'm gonna be perfectly real with you.
You don't condone it.
I don't really blame him.
Yeah, I ain't mad at him. Shit.
And I think the comic kind of plays on that, where it's like, I think because like later she's the one like that his wife becomes the Angelus, right? And I'm sitting here like, you know what? I'm gonna be again. I've said it before. I still think she was wrong. Like his daughter starts siding with her mom, saying like what he did to you was wrong, and I'm in the entire time was like, yeah, but she had it coming.
Well, he had it coming. I mean, dude, seriously, she's married to a mob boss. How did you think this was gonna go?
Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm like, dude, the minute unless he didn't know, which I call bullshit, unless he didn't know, like
Yeah, if he didn't know, he gets a quick death.
again, no. Let me
Wait. So he was sleeping around with a mob boss.
Yes,
The mob boss's wife. Oh yeah, you know
Yeah.
you're gonna die.
he's sleeping with the mob boss's wife, and I'm like, listen, man, you had to have known that shit was coming. You had to have been like, all right, my life is on the line. This woman better be worth it. If you get what I'm saying, this better be the greatest moments of my life.
That
'Cause I
woman
ain't
must be
gonna get
ridiculous.
much afterwards. And they even kind of they don't show like the full torture, but they do show hints of what he did to him. Like at one point, he had like a blowtorch and some shit like that.
Oh, he getting sadistic over there.
He got medieval on his ass.
He got medieval, yeah.
I'm gonna get medieval on your ass.
He wasn't fucking around.
And again, I'm like,
That dude fucked around and found out. That's
yeah.
more accurate.
And then when the daughter's like, he's gonna pay for what he did to you, mom, and I'm like, and I was like, I wouldn't be on her side. I'd be like, listen, your mom had it coming. Something to
Mama
a
was
degree.
Well,
Your mama had it coming to a degree. I'm not saying
Did he end up killing her, or
well, again, she becomes the Angelus, so no, not really. Basically, the way the comic frames it is that he tortured the lover, he made her watch, and that kind of messed her up mentally. And like, again, it's like had he tortured her, I'd probably been like, yeah, you have every right to hate this man. But the fact that he made her watch, I'm kind like again, I'm not saying making someone watch torment is a good thing, but I don't feel that much sympathy for you. You're the one who brought another man into your mob boss's husband's bed, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this is a great idea." Ain't
yeah,
nothing
this
gonna
is
go
the
wrong
way.
here.
It's like this is the way.
Oh yeah, as like Iris points out, like as of right now, like the dark. I'm only saying this now because like they don't need me to shill for them, but I mean we've been talking about it enough. They got the Kickstarter for The Darkness Volume 2 going right now, so
Oh, it's a Kickstarter?
yeah. I mean, I paid into the issue 2 or Volume 2 Witchblade Kickstarter. I got a bunch of cool stuff. I got like the hardcover of the comic. I got several issues.
Oh, I just thought they were just releasing it because I had seen it on Amazon at one point.
Well, you can. Let me put it this way. As of right now, and this is me being fair, it's already funded, so there's really no point. And I do know, like, Volume 1 of Witchblade, since I missed it, they do have it at comic book stores. I ordered mine from the comic book store, both my Darkness Volume 1 and Witchblade Volume 1, because I missed out on the Kickstarters for them. So that is a possibility as well.
Okay, because I might have to get, like, some of the Witchblade comics. Like I said, I've never read any of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest backing it. Let me put it this way. Back it if you're that much of a fan of it. Like, if you're not that much of a fan of it, just wait for it to show up at a comic book store or order it from a comic book store, order it online. Like, the backing is straight up for the fan.
Yeah.
All right, we're about 3 hours in, so I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I don't know if any of you guys have any kind of last-minute things you want to bring up.
Outside of saying I'll see J-Step on the Simp Olympics tomorrow.
Simp Olympics.
Oh yeah, I'll be there watching.
Yeah, that's gonna be some fun stuff. Oh man, yeah. If you can think of any other person that you think that should be in the Simp Olympics, contact Slim, because I think we got the best simps in there. I mean, hell, we got even the Omega simps like Star Butterfly and Catra. I mean,
I'm telling you right now, man.
He said someone added. He said some people reached out to him, so it's even more than 56 now.
Oh,
No,
good.
I'm telling you right now. From what I've read of the comics, you can add Jake from Witchblade into that shit. No,
Yeah.
I'll give you two right now. To be fair, you can add Jake from Witchblade and Jenny from The Darkness, the comic Jenny, because
Huh.
both of them are fucking simps for the main character.
That is an interesting point.
Jenny's a little bit better. Jenny's slightly better, only because of the fact that once she finds out Jackie doesn't have feelings for her, she moves on with her life. But Jake, on the other hand, I've already said it before, this motherfucker's sitting here getting attacked by ancient mythological weapons, and he's still like, yo, man, eventually, one day she'll see me.
You know, the sad part is I realized once Jake dies, oh yeah, spoiler, 20 years ago, once he dies, that's when the good outfit kind of goes bye-bye.
He died with him.
Yeah.
He took it with them to the grave.
Oh, you know what it was? The Witchblade was like, listen, Sarah, listen. I'm going to get you a man. He's right there, but I'm going to give him some eye candy. And the minute Jake dies, all right, well, that's the end of that. I'm not helping you out anymore.
Yeah, Witchblade's like, I tried. You didn't go for it.
I literally gave you every opportunity and you didn't take it.
Like, I hate Rip. Like, he meets the guy in the Atlas. Like, I tried, dude, for the record. I tried.
Oh, you know who else is another simp? The main villain from Witchblade, Jeremy Irons. He's a simp for the damn Witchblade itself.
Oh.
Yeah, he also loses his temper like super easy. It's just like I just remember like one of the big fights that happened in like the first couple issues, and this is funny because they actually kind of recreate that scene in the anime. Sarah's taken to this really fancy party, and so is again the main character from Witchblade. The difference, though, is both Sarah and the main anime character from Witchblade embarrass the people who brought them. The difference, however, is Irons lost his shit and started a fight with Sarah, while in the anime, she started a drinking contest between the two heads of one company. It was actually kind of interesting to see.
A drinking contest.
Yeah, there's two guys who are like the VPs or like the head honchos of that company that basically said, "Oh, we're sorry, we basically let bioweapons everywhere." There's two guys who kind of run the place, and to settle their honor, they had a drinking contest with the guy who was supposed to be the asshole, looking like the head contender, but somehow the other guy won, the one that's less of an asshole won. So, but again, it was kind of interesting that they actually replicated that scene with Irons and that really fancy party with two completely different outcomes.
That's hilarious, though.
That is some weird simping that the dude does. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it on my end too. Just see if you can check out the Simp Olympics, and this is fun. This is the kind of stuff I always look for.
Yeah, this is fun.
I'm gonna try to do this more often, more comic stuff, just because like I know we are all like, despite everything else, we're all big comic book people, and personally, like I know we did like movies, games, and stuff beforehand, but personally, I would prefer to do comics. The only downside is that sometimes there's a lot of like lore to a comic, so it's kind of hard to narrow down who knows what. But I also think it's a little bit better if we don't all know the same lore, because then we kind of bring in new stuff to it. Because like again, I didn't even know Witchblade had like an anime like early on. Like
that was a surprise to me too.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. I want to thank anybody and everybody who watched and will watch later. And you guys have a good night.
Yeah, you guys have a good night too. Take care.
You guys have a good night. I'm definitely about to crash as soon as I finish this one thing.
All right, later.
Yeah, see you all later.
See y'all later.
What are you gonna say, man? All right, night.
Good night.